Not doing anything. So just go and see her. I can't do it. I can't afford it. Agostina, then it will not be for me.
Not a job budget. And somebody come and stand in front of me and say, Representative Grace misleading the public. It's a disservice to you. And you must hold their feet to the fire because some of you voted for these thieves. Okay? The House Donor is a thief. It's a thief. I'm telling you, it's a thief. Anybody who lie on what you talk, he had checked here. We published no checks before. He denied a signature on those checks before 2020 campaign. He's a common criminal. I'm saying that to you. He's a common criminal. There's the budget he voted for. He's a criminal because he lied at $3.6 million is not in the budget. He can't take me anywhere. I defy him. That's a criminal. No, I'm not angry. I'm being forceful. I'm being intellectual. I'm providing facts. No, I said something I didn't mention him, so they don't know I'm a medicine. He has no integrity in life or integrity. He's in the crisis of integrity. He's drowning in the crisis of integrity. He's not only fake. He's drowning in the crisis of integrity. I say he's a criminal. He's a thief. To take a $45,000 car in the budget to vote for it, not just but to vote for it, and you didn't inform the people because you said everything you will inform the people on record for that. And he didn't say anything about it. Okay, the pastor didn't vote, but why he didn't say it? Why he didn't say he voted for it? The records are there, Lord. Gentlemen. Senator Delon should be treated as a common criminal for lying to the public that there's no $3.6 million in the budget. Okay, and they said they didn't want it. Where they place it? There's $3.6 million. Yeah, the money here. But there's in the budget. There's the final budget. So like they don't tell you when they took it all of a sudden where they put it. I beg you. One question is when they took it out, can you show us where you put your share? That's the question. If they answer that question, come back to me.
We now go over to Robert TWEAH of the Unity Party.
Yeah, everything I do, we must first tell the thing to the people.
That's what I'm saying.
We've been doing that with people clean the champagne in our various communities. So, in social science, said, go to people and ask them what they name. And so you posing them to say, I name this. But if you don't ask your people, then what do you carry to them? So before I ask them what they name and what they name, I take them to them.
Your three major priorities.
Right now, if you look at I'm a teacher in profession.
You teacher?
Yeah, I'm a teacher. The second thing is that we want the boroughs autonomous.
The boroughs what?
It's autonomous. Yeah, it's autonomous.
Go ahead.
And we look at some of the things we want to consider because we talk about autonomous, that means you have a lot of facility, a lot of things that you do in the borough. And if you are autonomous and you have other things to do, and if you look at the good time, men are young people are great.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are, however you are joining the conversation. This is a special edition of Freedom Hub here on 87.9. My name is Khan Oliver Khan. Austin Kawai is here. Teacher Light, A.B. Godson Way on the man from Face the Issues. And also here. We've got two of our colleagues, Jerome Roosevelt of Royal Communications Incorporated and Winston Blyting from Bannon FM. Today's edition is a wonderful one. It promises to be very, very fiery. When the Minister of Finance and Development Planning, the Honorable Finance Minister Samuel D. TWEAH, will be sitting in the hot seat for straight 2 hours, providing all of the answers to your questions. The minister is expected to tell us more about the status of the Liberian economy, election financing, the status of all of the projects of the government as we are heading towards the 2023 elections. Too many things, too many issues to talk about. We take a few bars of our team song then. When we come back, we run strictly into real business for real people right here on 87.9. This edition has been simulcast across the country. There are several radio stations in Monrovia and other parts of Liberia are bringing this entire broadcast live to you. We have a list of community radio stations across the country. We have several other online platforms streaming this entire conversation. LNTV, KNTV, Front Page Africa TV, the DTV, Pupa TV, the CDC TV, and of course, the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning Communications Department. There are several other radio stations across the country, including the Voice of Plebo, the Voice of Hope in Plebo, Meriden County, Super Bungie there in Bong County, and the list of other radio stations across rural Liberia. We take a few bars of our team song then. When we come back, we run into the real issues. Okay, so welcome back to the program. Austin, Roosevelt, Blyden, and Teacher Light, Mr. Wayne. It is our honor to welcome you on this special edition. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Yeah, I want to say how's up to you. Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I think we're getting.
Yeah, I think you did good. You got it.
So you did your own job, so you have to.
Okay, so that's what.
You have to go through it. Winston, are we good?
I'm very sure we are good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Roosevelt.
Thank you.
Okay, so gentlemen, we move into the real issues. We have the Minister of Finance, Minister Samuel D. TWEAH. This is your second appearance on Freedom Hub. It is our honor to welcome you back to Freedom Radio Liberia. Good afternoon.
Thank you for having me, Freedom. It's always a great opportunity to come in these studios, Freedom, ELBC, to engage with the Liberian people, especially at a time when we are heading for elections, where a lot of misinformation, a lot of propaganda is in the air. I think it's democratically just for the Liberian people to vote for their leaders based on the facts and the reality. It is totally unjust for any political party, any political leader seeking office to want to get into office by planting fear or misinformation, by hyping propaganda in the minds of the Liberian people with an idea that that misinformation will make the Liberian people scared or the way elect them. I think so. What you will see over the next months or so as spokespersons of the government in their various capacities will be out there providing information for our people. When they have the right information, and when they see, given what they see, it's not just the information we're providing. They already know what is happening in the country. They feel it, they see it, they'll be the better judge for themselves. At the end of the day, they will move then and make informed choices about who is supposed to lead them and who is not. And so we're here to enhance or further this discussion, this conversation with our people in very simple Liberian English. We break every complex thing down for the level of the person in the village who doesn't know economics, who doesn't know development, who doesn't even understand politics, so that they can understand what is happening in their country, what the president has done over the last 5 years, We talk a lot of things about what he has done that wasn't done before, and why Liberians should look at President Weah as a remarkable, great leader who inherited a very difficult situation. He turned it around and is now looking for a second term to really continue the development and the transformation work that he began. Somebody say in 5 years. I would say technically the president did not have 5 years.
Okay, so we'll go into the rest of
Let me lead that one. I get an intro.
We want to ask you for intro, and you pick up already. And now we're going to elections, and we're aware the entire country will be going to elections in October. You're the man in charge of the fiscal policies of our country. You call the shots. You fund all of the projects. You're the one fueling the government's operation across the country. Now, you want to give us an update of the status of the Liberian economy as we're heading towards elections.
Definitely, the status of the Liberian economy is strong. Strong relative to the weak position that the government inherited. Strong in terms of what we call macro stability. So, these are big things for our people to understand, but we'll try to break it down so that to know that the rate of inflation is low, because when inflation is low, then it means people's income are protected. So we have worked to bring inflation down. The way you know that is to compare our inflation with Sierra Leone, for example. Inflation is 47% in Sierra Leone. 43%. 43%. You go on the internet, you see any World Bank latest report. Current inflation. Inflation in Ghana, for example, is probably in the 40s. Liberia is the only English-speaking West African country that is close to the French-speaking inflation rate. The lowest inflation in Liberia, West Africa, is happening in Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal. Those people, the CFA, the currency is the CFA pegged to the French economy. So the inflation is the lowest. So when you look at Nigeria, Gambia, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, Liberia inflation is single digit. The other countries' inflation are not single digit. So Liberian people have to tell the president, thank you for sustaining that one. The exchange rate, and I know we talk about exchange rate, Liberia has had one of the most stable exchange rate. There's been some recent pressures on the exchange rate, but you're looking at the pressure today, but you also have to look at what has happened. So to judge the man, where he took it from, where he stabilized it. And as you go to election, what we're looking at is that there are some uncertainties. Even as in 2017, we saw some of those uncertainties as well, meaning, all kinds of things can happen. And so we talk about some of that. So it put pressure, but we're working very hard to again bring it back down to normal. The president changed the whole fiscal management regime of the country. The country used to be spending money that the country never used to have. President Weah said, no. If you get your house and you're making $300, try to live on $300.
Okay.
Don't make $300 and be living on $1,000, how we used to do it. So he said, no. First of all, don't borrow from the central bank. If the revenue in the government account is not there to pay salary, don't go to the central bank for it. That's how we used to do it. He said, you manage it such that you will pay the people without borrowing from the central bank. We're one of the few countries in the world that does not borrow from the central bank. So we being stable. So when you look at all those things, the economists, the big people they call it, macroeconomic stability. So they say in West Africa right now, Liberia is macroeconomically stable, relevant to the other countries. But you have to stay on that macroeconomy now to do big things. We talk about all these other things as we go along. So the economy is strong. Growth today, in 2021, we grew at nearly 5%. There was some conversation on OKFM this morning about somebody called per capita GDP, right? They were comparing, we go to the election and people take Sierra Leone to confuse the people. They say Sierra Leone doing better than Liberia on per capita GDP. So what I want me is that the simple way to look at GDP is to say, let's say that 100 person went work. 100 men produce something. Maybe they may farm. The 100 men, na Liberia. They make a farm, they produce 100 beggar, that's GDP. So 100 beggar, we call it GDP. The 100 men will We call it population. So it means technically one man working to produce one bag of rice, right? So I had a common man understand it. So yeah, in Sierra Leone, the 400 men, let's say the 300 men on the farm, they produce 150 bag of rice. Who working?
What do you think?
Yeah, so I give the Liberian people now 100 men producing 100 bag of rice, 300 men go produce 150 bag of rice. I mean, the people, the 100 men working harder, so the economy better. The other people are more, but they still producing less. So that's why when you say per capita GDP, when you divide the bag of rice by the population, in case the GDP by the population, Liberia will be higher than Sierra Leone. So as an indicator, you know that something good is happening here. So the goal is that when the economy look at per capita, they want it to continue to go up. So because the population, it can grow smaller. So it takes Liberia, in 1960, we had 1 million people. You see, since 1960, like 60 years ago, we are just 5 million. So population will grow, but the economy can grow bigger. So you want the economy growth rate to be bigger than the population, then the per capita GDP. So we should move from around 600, 700 to around 1,000 to around 1,500 when we expand the economy. Some of the things we're talking about here to continue to improve living standard in the country. So all in all, Liberians looking at where the president took the country from a sinking economy to now stable and standing on a strong foundation to solve infrastructure problems, electricity, road, we'll talk about all of those. They have to give the man a second chance, second term, because the place the man inherited from, the people had 12 years. And as we talk about what they did in 12 years and versus what he has done in 5 years, it's not possible for the Liberian people to look at him and say they gave him 1 term because the numbers are there.
And
let me come in, Austin. I'm Winston Bladden. What would you say year 1 to year 5? You as a finance minister on your watch, how will you grade in a fair analysis? Because if I recall, the last time you went State Radio BC, some figures sitting ready to go down where with some members of the opposition community. We're going to talk of the town. How will you grade it, sir?
No, I didn't talk about my grade on ERBC.
No, I'm aware, but you
talk about numbers. I'm there in the studio. I don't want to say the number. We'll talk about the numbers. But you want to grade me? I will leave the Liberian people to be the judge to grade me. I don't think I will grade myself. What I will grade generally is the totality of the governance in several categories. Macroeconomic, public financial management, infrastructure, investment, all those small when you put all together. We see the president pass. That's why the country knows. This is not what I'm saying. It's what the Liberian people in Nima County, in Lofa County, in the Southeast, the people there, they know that the president is a development hero. They're talking it. They're not us saying it. They're feeling it. We're just explaining how that development happened, how we did more with less. I just told you the example, right? Less people doing more. So in the case here, we got less resources, we did more with it. They have more resources, they did less with it on several indicators. And let me throw one that I said, or maybe I may not get ahead of you.
Yes,
guys.
it's important that we place emphasis on a couple of issues. I listened to you talking about inflation and doing a comparative analysis between Ivory Coast and Sierra Leone and Liberia. I'd like to pick in on the effects when we're talking price. If you walk down the streets and listen to the buyers, the consumers, yes, the technicians may want to appreciate the performance of the economy, but the consumers are displeased with the price they see in the markets, in the shops when they go to buy. Don't you think they're supposed to corroborate?
Yeah, so what it's telling you is that prices could have been higher.
Is that why you think prices could have been higher?
Oh, of course, with the situation.
But the prices have increased outside of what you've approved.
No, when you look at the general, that's why I say, people say the general situation. And the only way to speak about Liberia is to compare Liberia with other countries. Now, when you check that one and then you come back inside Liberia, but you got to compare Liberia. The only thing to do is to compare Sierra Leone, Ghana, all these other countries. And the major indicator there is how prices are doing. So if rice in Liberia here is $17 per 25 kilogram bag, the Oma in Sierra Leone is paying maybe around $25 for it. That's what it means.
Are you assuming?
No, I know it's higher there. So I'm just telling you that the prices in Liberia relative to Sierra Leone are lower on several indicators. That's why that I mean saying that when you look at the IMF, you look at all the people who study inflation and living standard. That's why in Ghana right now, the same thing. They put Ghana price at 43%, 43 Sierra Leone and Ghana inflation. So when you say price is high in Liberia, I say, you have to compare it. Now, if you say price is high relative to 10 years ago, of course.
No, Mr. Minister. Mr. Minister.
Yeah.
Prices have increased in Liberia. That is a fact.
There will from now until the next 100 years, the whole business of prices that they will continue to go up.
Then it takes up back to the macro that you're talking
about.
Hold
on.
So your responsibility as the fiscal manager of the country is to ensure that prices do not increase.
No. Yeah. So to reduce the rate at which price going up, because it's a fact of life that prices will continue to go up. The price that were in Liberia 30 years ago is not the price that you have now. The price that in America 10 years ago is not the price that they're now. So generally, economists study what we call the movement of prices. It's a law that will continue to go up, but you want to stabilize it. And the way to stabilize it is to stabilize the macro so that the inflation rate and all the underlying reasons. There are many reasons in Liberia why prices are high. We'll talk about some of them.
Yeah, sorry. Let's look at three major reasons.
Infrastructure is a major reason why prices can be high in the country. The cost of electricity. Let me tell you, that's one of the biggest reasons why price will be high. I'll give you some concrete example. Take SETI. He's a manufacturer. He's doing steel. SETI said he spent $25 million to build his steel plant as an investment. Good. The power cost, every 3 months, he said he spends $700,000 for electricity cost. He has a 12 megawatt plant. We multiply that 700,000 times 4 at 2.8 million. So he's spending. He has a same plant in Ghana. In Liberia, he's spending 2.8 million per year for one plant. In Ghana, I believe he's spending between 700,000, even less for one. So the man's spending 2 million more in Liberia. What do you think his price would be? That generator he's running on, I'm talking about LEC that he's using. Now he wants to go to LEC. He needs 12 megawatt. Want to jump on LEC, CLSG, but we don't have the capacity. Why we don't have the capacity? Because let me tell you, we don't have the capacity because we're still living in William V.S. Tubman's country. In 1960, I think 61, 62, thereabouts, President Tubman produced a hydro with 66 megawatts. The Liberian population at the time was 1 million, 1.5 million. So for Tubman, 1 million people living with a hydro of 66 megawatts, you can criticize the President Tubman, but maybe it's okay. It's a beginning. I'm 52 years old. Tubman died. He built a hydro about 60 years ago. You know how many megawatts we have added to Tubman 66? We have added 20 megawatts. It took the country 60 years to add 20 megawatts to what Tubman gave us for 66. In other words, since Tubman died, we are only able to give SETI, who needs 12 megawatts, and maybe, I won't say Simego because Simego will probably need more than SETI, but one other investor who need 8. For 60 years, the country can only cater to 2 major investors, SETI, in giving us a hydro of 88 megawatts. As we speak right now, we have concluded with the World Bank. We are challenging that Tubman infrastructure to carry Liberia capacity to about 200 megawatts. It is happening under George Weah. The only president that will challenge Tubman's legacy is George Weah. So when power is not available,
it took you 5 years or over 5 years to reach this point.
It took us 5 years, probably less when you account for COVID, to achieve massive transformation in power in roads. It took the whole country. I just gave you something that says 60 years, 88 megawatts. What that means is that the Unity Party had an opportunity in 12 years to move us from 88 megawatts, from 66 megawatts to 300 megawatts. Why didn't that happen? Had they done so, the price structure of Liberia would have been better. We are now thinking, standing on the foundation we're building, to make our price structure better by working with the bank to get higher capacity. It will take some time. Of standing on hydro of 88, my brother, with the electricity cost that was 35 cents per kilowatt hour, who reduced it? President, we have brought it down to 20 cents per kilowatt hour. 20 cents per kilowatt hour, SETI will still be paying lots of money. Even you bring it down to 15 cents, maybe he's paying 10 cents per kilowatt hour in Guinea. You do a broad math, if 1 kilowatt hour is 14 cents, then maybe he will be paying around 400,000. If it's around 10, he'll be paying less. So imagine you're talking about 400,000 versus 2.8 million. That is why he has to add those things. So when all the other businesses, people who have to pay higher costs, will add their prices. When you don't resolve the structural problem in the economy, you can't have lower prices. You will not. Roads. I was on ELBC and LEC gave me, not LEC, but Public Works gave me a number around 600. I think we revised that number. I went to Public Works and I sat before the years. I said, what is that? I need to tell the Liberian people between 2018 and 2023, what is the quantum of roads we built? I think they made some error in that calculation. But the real number now is about 347 kilometers of roads. Because I don't want roads that are not completed yet. Don't tell me the road in 6 months will be finished. Don't tell me, no, just tell me pavement that has been done. So the real number we want. So that number is 347 kilometers. In 5 years, minus the years that we sat down and did nothing. So that COVID-19, the lockdown, all that one, and the impact of all of that, companies didn't mobilize and all of that. When you compare that one with the historical average at which we have done pavement and with the Unity Party's record, you will re-elect the president. So he exceptionally is doing well. When you compare the fact that he's bringing the cost of electricity down from 35 cents to 20 cents for businesses and to now maybe 15 to 16 cents for the ordinary poor people. When you compare the number of people who have access to electricity over the last 5 years, the American ambassador spoke on that one. He talked about LEC. We have spent billions in the electricity sector. In the last 2 to 3 years under President TWEAH, we have transformed the situation of LEC. The man who was speaking now, by the U.S. Ambassador McCarthy, he was telling the country about the incredible reform that is happening at LEC. The fact that power theft, all that cartel that used to happen, we're breaking it down. Metal problem that will never solve. For 12 years under Unity Party, we're now solving those structural problems. The only enemy we will have now is time. So the president needs his second term to complete all of these roads. We have financing for roads in the entire Southeast. Money is not the problem.
We're going to go to...
The problem is time.
We're going to go to...
So the people of the Southeast have to know that their road is coming.
We'll go there.
Before you go there, I want to do a follow-up. And just for clarity, what do you say to some Liberians who believe due to the high economy, the president shouldn't be re-elected? The opposition community is campaigning on the basis of high economy of our country. What do you say to them?
The sensible Liberians who are listening to me know that when you're judging the president, you have to take it from where the president took it from, how he turned it around, and how he's stabilizing. The president is the president who say for fuel price not to go up, you'll take 10 cents from there. Right now, as we're speaking, there's an IMF mission in the country right now, meeting with the fiscal authorities. They're here. That's one of the reasons I don't go to Israel. I'm here working. So the IMF mission here is we're working on new revenue. They're putting pressure on that 10 cents. They're saying that 10 cents, other countries, Sierra Leone there, they didn't take that 10 cents from there. Why you want to take the 10 cents? Why you're stepping into the market? I said, because we are a pro government. We are the one who can say tuition are free for college. So the president, that 10 cents, it come from COVID time, but we're not able to. So that is. So when you say we're not paying attention to the bread and butter issue or the price issues, they're not true. Because when we move that 10 cents from there, the price of fuel will go up. But the president said, look, $17 million that we could do a road. I mean, let's stay with the Liberian people. In the same way, the president said rice price might not go up for 4 years, saving the Liberian people from spending $144 million. $144 million Liberian people did not spend between 2018 and 2021, 2022 when we kept the price of rice at $13. Whereas in Ivory Coast, all other people, citizens of those countries did not have that kind of proper benefit that they had. So the president's number one concern has always been with, I don't want pressure to be on Liberians because I know where I came from myself. I used to be there. So tuition, woman, you gotta look for your son or daughter, that free tuition. Put that money in your business, or don't have to worry about that one. WAS fee, don't worry about it. You know how many students have benefited from WAS fee? More than 200,000 students have benefited over the last 4 years. They haven't had to struggle. Some of them didn't have to go all in the street. Our vulnerable girls don't have to go all over looking for WAS fee, which was the experience of the president. That's why he moved to the policy. So when you take all these bread and butter issues, given the COVID-19, all the challenges, Liberians, the students the other day went to the CDC headquarters, they were showing appreciation for a president that cares.
You keep arguing that the president should be re-elected, based on what you've done with the fiscal issues in the country. Now, this president on the 22nd of January in 2018 promised the Liberian people that they would not be spectators in their own economy. Minister TWEAH, the reason why Ghana, Nigeria, other places are traveling, because the citizens are in charge of their economy. What has been your advice from a fiscal perspective with reference to having this, Liberianization policy fully implemented? Why is it taking long, to have it done?
Liberians will not be spectators in their own economy in Ghana, in Ivory Coast, because the structural foundations that were laid in those countries enable their citizens to participate more fully. The president inherited a structural deficit. If you sit down here and write a law and say these constraints will hold Liberian businesses down.
Why?
And that's why we are solving those constraints. So when you come to I was just talking to the Liba Secretary General about Liberian business issues.
Okay.
And we talk about it. And good that we talked about it a bit before I came on the show. She came to see me for the inauguration. So let's talk about Liberian business. Okay, we have a business law and with plenty of forum to bring all the business people together. The basic challenge Liberian businesses face is that they need access to finance, for example. Yeah, meaning bank got to give them money. Banks are not giving them money because banks saying when you give the money to get it back, if they don't pay, that problem.
We've had this conversation over and over,
That's
Minister
correct.
TWEAH.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, do you have to blame it on structural issues for Liberians to be given the chance to sell flour by kilos?
No.
Because they keep struggling with the importers to do simple things like retailing. And you government sit down.
Yes. The complaint we've heard is that they call something called fronting.
Okay.
The law protects certain businesses for Liberians.
Sure.
All right. The same Liberians go and front for the foreigners.
You are the regulator.
Okay, hold on. Yeah. So if you went to the business, the name on the business is a Liberian, but all the business transactions are not in the Liberian name. They are complaining to us about that. So we say, look, as long as you have this situation, I don't care what kind of framework you put. What we need to do is to look at regulation to say, maybe change the law. Instead of the law we want to propose or the regulation is that when the business that is protected by law for Liberians, when the Liberian person name is on that account, on that business account, then that Liberian person name will also be on the bank account. So you need regulation to show that if the foreigner have an account in EcoBank, the Liberian that name, we got evidence that the Liberian managing the account, that one not there right now. That's a structural weakness. So we pass a law and say, protect Liberians with this. But the same Liberians go and work with the people and they doing the business. When the auditor go there and say, no, this is a Liberian business, Liberian people covering up. The way to stop Liberian people from covering up is to then go and say, look, okay, if you show that this person is, this business is for Liberian, I want to see the Liberian managing the money And that's the conversation we're having now. That a conversation, there's a forum coming up, we want to bring all the Liberian business together and say, how do we enforce?
The president made a statement in 2018, and you are having a conversation in 2023. Why the time interval?
Because you got to look at the structure. We gave proper loans.
Uh-huh.
You remember? We gave some loans. Not much. Country is challenged, rules, everything. You're looking for money to get the business people.
Uh-huh.
But what you're finding is that if you giving loan may not be the thing, because you need to remove these barriers. And it takes some time to understand that this is a problem for 171 years that we had in the country.
So you started giving loan without facing the structural problems.
When you're dealing with the practical thing, you have to go into it. As you go, you learn, and then you see, the real problem here is, how do you protect Liberians in a way? And so there are some reactions. Some people from the international community say that is discriminatory. There are counter views as well. Say, when the government tries to protect certain level, it looks like you're discriminatory. And if you want to discriminate, there's some of our money that is coming may be a problem, because we don't want an economy that is discriminatory. We're also having that conversation.
So, Mr. Minister, I think we've passed that stage.
So it's balancing.
The fact that you have a law already on the books that protects certain businesses.
They should be protected.
Yeah.
Now, what we ask should be the implementation model that we should be either making amendment to or enforcing.
That is the
and
conversation.
This is the issue we're having with you now.
Well, that's a
Why has the government not been able to enforce all the Liberian businesses? They continue to complain that they are not being protected. Lebanon man is selling, Indian man is selling to Gafle, slipper by retail down waterside. Mr. TWEAH can go down waterside and see an Indian man serving as cashier.
That's correct.
Behind the store, as a store boy. These things are visible. You know them. Everybody knows them. So why have the government not been able to address these issues?
The problem, the government is understanding. It's the same situation like a black market.
Mr. 5 years?
No, hold on. The government is looking at changing the policy landscape. Now, you say 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
All right. Why in year one? Why in year two? We didn't, because you come to power, people have businesses, all the groups are working, you look at access to finance, you're solving the other constraints. You take some time to understand that this fronting problem, it's the biggest elephant in the room, because that's where it has to do with human behavior. But you have to go intrusive into the banks, into financial institutions, to start requiring them to report. All that stuff has never been happening before, and we are in the process of making that happen. That is going to be the game changer. The solution is not, for example, for me, from my perspective, standing up an agency to say Liberian businesses should have a ministry. There are some views about that. For me, I believe you need to remove those kinds of enforcement barriers, so that to stop people from colluding, even Liberians themselves, to prevent them from fronting under the existing law. That is the path to really unlocking the potential.
So, Honorable Minister, today, 5 years, like Ottawa said. So, when you sit here today, you regret that the president ever made that promise?
No. The president put a lot of Liberians in business. What are you talking about? We're talking about a structural constraint that is still there. The president provided lots of the small business loan, brought a lot of Liberians. The cost of electricity coming down made Liberian businesses to now suffer more, because they're no longer paying 35 cents per kilowatt hour. He brought it down to 20 cents per kilowatt hour. So that's lower cost for businesses, right? The improvement in roads. So generally, when you move all these structural complaints, you're enabling Liberian businesses. The president also working to solve all of the regulatory. We just signed a $40 million program with the World Bank to address the private sector, but that's small money, meaning that money will be used to give Liberian businesses money, small businesses, but also work with the judiciary so we can resolve the problem why the banks are afraid to give Liberian businesses, because they say people cannot pay back. So we're solving this. So a lot of stuff has been done. So when you say Liberian businesses are not expected, it doesn't mean just giving Liberian business loan. It also means solving all of the things that will make a Liberian business to enter business and to survive. You don't want somebody entering business and then facing a challenge because of high cost barrier. So the president has done well. But in the real complaint practically on the ground has to do with this fronting business that the law sets aside for Liberians. And let me say, 171 years, we haven't been able to do it. We haven't been able to do it in our own time. That is the big elephant in the room. And so the regulatory part now, the work that has to happen is to stop fronting. If we're enforcing this law, to stop Liberians from fronting against Liberian own interest. So that's what we need to start. So I'm making it simple for everybody to know. People down Waterside, They know who fronting. The people who are fronting, they are protecting certain people. So we got to come out clean and say, look, we're calling a forum. We've been calling a forum in Ganta to talk about this, because when you go to businesses in Ganta, they talk about this. We say, look, we have to be smart to think about how to catch the fronter, and the smartest way is to pass a law that will say the businessman must put the bank account in the name of the Liberian. Let's see evidence of the Liberian controlling the $3 million. If we don't see that, then we probably are going to move to take the business away. And to be honest with you, that is not an easy proposition. That is also going to be subject to a lot of politics when you start that regulation. Yeah, but they're only not, when you're solving macro problems, you're solving all the 1 million problems. You also sometimes have to choose whether you can choose. Maybe first generation, first 5 years, we solve some big reform problem. We're in a position to tackle this now. I mean, there's going to be some noise. You will hear that. You're trying to go into people's business. You are being discriminatory. International community will start issuing releases. The Liberian labor laws are discriminatory. The investment climate is discriminatory because they're trying to protect certain industry, and then it means our country money when I come to help the country. You'll hear all of that. I'm just putting it out here. But that reform did not happen. That it didn't happen doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. There were other reforms that happened to help the business. And so we will begin to look at
all right,
that.
Minister, let me just get to these points. We are going to the 2023 elections.
Yeah.
And key amongst things that the locals are discussing out there, they believe in competitive analysis of the previous regime, though some will say it's unfair to match 12 versus 5. But whichever way it goes, you have to face it as though you are facing 12. Now, we want to know from you. You have had an appreciation of what governance is, though you may have had some stints in consultancy role in the previous administration, but where you sit now, the engine of growth of our country, you control it significantly. When you took over in 2018 officially, can you just tell the Liberian people, because we are about to match your level of effort you have exerted, and in terms of what significant impact you have made over the last 5 years, what was the health status of Liberia's economy when you took over, especially our country with a lot of deliveries on mine and so forth? How was it like?
Liberia, I think the former president said it. I think before she left office, or she said times were going to be difficult. I remember when I was at the Ministry of Finance under former Minister Kone, I know one time he asked, look, TWEAH, maybe we need to look at what will happen here after Ome leaves. I think Dale Francis can bear me out. We began some, analysis to see that, because obviously Ome is going. And so the whole economy was based on monies that Ome were bringing in the country. Ome hiring people, paying rent. Ome were paying $3,000 to people. That's about $36,000 a year. If you're a real property owner, Ome renting you, you have an income of $36,000. What's going to happen to you when Ome leaves? The income is going to go to zero. You are shopping in the supermarket. You're no longer going to shop in the supermarket. So we began some kind of analysis then. But at the end of the day, it was probably too late. This is somewhere around 2016. Yeah, I mean, Ome being in the country all along. What that meant was that, and the former president probably knew that look, times were going to be tough, because what's the thing that supported me? Like all the money that Ome were bringing was part of our macro. So when you see the country, the national reserve high, of course, Ome bringing $200 million into the country, it will be part of that macro flow. When you see the exchange rate, even though the exchange rate depreciated from 55 Liberian dollar to $1 US in 2006. So 55 Liberian dollars were buying $1 US in 2006 when the president took office. That exchange rate, by the time the president was leaving, depreciated to around 127 Liberian dollars. So everything that happened between 2006 and 2018 was to use all the free money that were coming in to stop the exchange rate from going up. That's what we call that. That was the macro policy at the time. So we're living on free things.
It was not sustainable.
No, it was never sustainable. The fundamentals were weak, as the economy would say. The structural foundation was weak. The macro policy was just based on surplus, meaning you have some free money coming in, you have iron ore price being higher. And so if iron ore price in 2011, I think was around 186, the dry metric ton, 186. Iron ore price now is 65, dropped to 65 on our time. So Liberian revenue Liberia lost more than $120 per ton. So we lost millions of dollars. So at that time, all that high rubber price, high iron ore price was supporting our macro. We did not think that suppose all the thing collapse, what will happen to our macro? Yeah. Lately, as I told you as an economist, the Minister of Finance, lately before he left, started thinking about that, but we were late. In our case, we assume that we're moving into a strong foundation, right? You know, but at the time we
Was that an assumption?
Well,
that you're moving to a strong foundation?
Doing
all of this?
We thought the thing, even me who knew some of the technical things, the weaknesses, still believe that maybe the foundation, but when I found, there's one theory.
So your premises were based on those foundations that you may have assumed.
The PAPD.
Yeah.
The PAPD, when you're writing development, the first thing you stay on is your macro. You begin by your analysis with the macro. So the next development plan that we're writing is based on this macro that is now stronger. That plan was based on their macro. And we believe that the macro we knew it was weak, but we didn't believe it was that weak. So that as soon as the president took office, everything just collapsed. And that's where you saw all that crisis in the 2018 because the macro was not there. Nothing was there.
And that is where a lot of your critics have the issues with you. Because unlike the other people in the CDC, you have the opportunity to have served in the Ellings administration as a consultant. You admitted just now that Minister Kone invited you and said this thing will happen.
Yeah.
Why didn't you advise the president, prior to the inauguration, that hey, we will have to be cautious in tailoring our policies, because when I was there, it was not the way we think it is going to be. The thing, you willfully walk him into this whole economic situation.
How? What is the goal of the PAPD? The goal of the PAPD was to lift. Yes, we're standing in today. We say, I'm going to put the technical difficulties and the disagreements we have in the development plan with the consultants and economists. But we say we move 1 million people from poverty.
Okay.
We did not say we gave 1 million people a job. Fact check. You're listening to this one. Go read the PAPD. Nowhere in the PAPD does it say that we are providing 1 million jobs. In fact, you don't need 1 million jobs to take 1 million people. You are who asking the question. The fact that you get a job, how many people get income from you? Let me ask you. How many people get income from you?
He's not going to say.
No, but he knows the number of persons who get income from him.
The latest census say there are about 4.8 persons in a household. Okay. So let's just say 5 persons. When you say household, are 5. If the head of the home get job, when we can't do the poverty analysis, that income, all his 5 children are inside it.
So they are moving away from poverty.
So one job can move 5 persons out of poverty.
Okay.
So hold on now. So let me correct you one first.
Technical analysis.
No, listen. We did not promise 1 million job.
Granted.
One job is not responsible for moving 1 person from poverty. So you have to do the math to see how many jobs we're talking about there. And given that ratio, you're probably talking about 200,000 or so. All right. So let's get it clear further. We did not promise, the PAPD did not talk in terms of jobs. It talked in terms of removing people from extreme poverty. The president inherited 2.1 million people living in extreme poverty. That's correct, that he did not put them in poverty.
Okay.
That's a fact. Okay.
So gave a lot of promises.
So yes, standing on the macro that we were going to then move into the kind of situation that would create an enabling environment for for the private sector to thrive. But the constraints in this country are too big.
This is why I want to take you back to AB's question.
Yeah.
Now, if you would, I don't know what's happening. Now, you were aware of the structural weakness or weaknesses in the system.
Oh, yeah.
And you admitted to the structural weaknesses in the system.
Of course.
It is on the basis of the structural weaknesses that you identify that led you into formulating the PAPD.
I cannot predict the future. No, the only person that can predict the future is God. No economist in the world. No,
Mr. Minister, the economists
you can project.
Yes.
Listen.
Mr. Minister,
you have some projections of what may happen.
The great financial crisis of 2008 happened on the back of the smartest economists in the world, and nobody's saw it. Yeah, they say a few people, but the system didn't.
That's a different case.
Mr.
Minister, the point is you have access to the indicators.
Yeah, but
it was on the basis of the indicators that you formulated the PAPD.
So nothing saying that in the next 6 years to find 200,000 jobs, okay, it's not unreasonable. Not 1 million. You're making an argument because you're still thinking about 1 million jobs. Okay, let's get that clear. It's not too unreasonable to say. So what you're basically telling me is that the PAPD, Mr. Minister, should have said we lift 300,000 people from poverty. That would have been too.
No, the question is about my concern is to director picking up from AB's concern. But where did you meet the economy?
Well, that's what I told you.
And where we are, and then you started to justify why you didn't achieve this, you didn't achieve that.
Because of the macro slippage. When you do an economy and the economy start going tailspin, you have to stop and fix it first.
So I'll need you to point to the indicators that you consider then. Before
the macro numbers that we're looking at.
Minister, let's go back to 2006. Look at an economist in former President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. When they took over, looking at the strength of the macro, he decided to do the issue of downsizing, right sizing so that it could fit in. Now you took over. Now, instead of following similar pattern, now that you appreciated what it is, you didn't do that. In fact, there were a lot of inclusion of people on government's payroll. In the context of Propo, you don't want to get people out of jobs again. You have to leave them there. That was a strategy you employed. Now, going forward, you decided to employ another strategy to come up to the salary harmonizations. And this goes against what the Unity Party did in increasing people's salary from 15 to 125. Leaks, so forth here and there. So we are trying to, because these are the competitive analysis out there.
So the fluff were in the economy, the bubble was there.
And you knew
the bubble was there.
Fixable bubbles.
The bubble was there.
Fixable.
You can never prevent bubbles from bursting.
Okay.
So all we had to do was, once we got into power, to start working. The bubble burst immediately. Now the bubble burst immediately. What did we do in 2018? Go back to see when the president gave a speech about macroeconomic situation. 2018, we just said, the bubble burst too soon. So on 2018, we started to then look at exchange instability. The exchange rate were moving every day. So in 2018, it's not like this thing started in 2020. It started immediately. We started saying, but all this thing is going to collapse. We got to revise all of these. First, let's get to work and move all the air that in the balloon, because that's so fluff. Growth rate of 8%, 2010, that growth rate, I will shoot it down, move 5 points from there, because I will fluff. That's not real growth rate there. But when you're doing the economy, when you're doing the thing, the World Bank got a growth rate of 9%, the IMF get it. Who am I to say I'm going to singularly downgrade that growth rate? No, you have to take the numbers as they are, because those numbers are recognized by everybody.
Okay.
All right.
So, just a minute. The president, indeed, in Front Page Africa, you talk about fast check. Front Page Africa, September 6, 2017, in Bangabon County. This is what it said in a quote. The standard bearer of the Coalition for Democratic Change, Ambassador TWEAH, has promised to create more jobs if elected as president of the Republic of Liberia. Indeed, he promised to get Liberian jobs.
Liberian. They'll take about 200,000 jobs. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just telling the president, say you're giving 1 million jobs.
Okay.
So let's get our.
So he was never excited about creation of jobs.
Nothing in the PAPD said 1 million jobs. It says they lift 1 million people out of poverty. So that's not that. So you got to look at the number of jobs that require to lift. And I just did analysis for you.
So since 2017 of the president, what can you say about in terms of employment?
Look, employment statistics, I've said out on many shows. No, I will not come here and throw employment numbers around. The country itself, I've raised this with the World Bank, everybody else, we need to find a reliable way to measure formal sector jobs and informal sector jobs. So I don't get into trying to estimate. There are jobs that are being created in the economy, no question. But I've said on all my previous shows, you will never hear me say, because the reason why when you go Ghana right now, you go Ivory Coast, you will not hear job statistics easily in their macro framework, is because of the difficulty there. The place the formal economists are successful in estimating formal sector jobs. Informal economists like Liberia and large informal economy are not successful. We have to work towards that. And so some countries are working towards that. That's why you don't see us, so we probably will scarce our goal more in terms of let's reduce the number of people in extreme poverty.
So I take you to our regional counterparts. When President Bola Ahmed Tinubu got inaugurated, in less than 24 hours, he took an austerity measure that removed the subsidy on petroleum products. Now, the president got elected on December 26, 2017. It took you, close to a month to prepare for transition. You are fortunate to have been with the Unity Party administration and in the fiscal space. This is where people think you willfully created some of the problems from the very beginning, because unlike Bola Tinubu, who took the decision in less than 24 hours, one would have thought that you would advise the president that, hey, Mr. President, I saw the indicators from the beginning when we were with the Ellens team. It would not be advisable we continue to pay on the same payroll structure these people are operating. But instead, you went and you even pay up to 4 months using their pay structure when it could not work anymore. You reverted to the harmonization situation.
So I'm trying to understand what bad policies we put in place by taking the office, because nobody have talked to the United Party people to show us what wrong we did in the economy.
They think you did not prevent bulk of what we are experiencing.
Hold on. Mm-hmm. If you're judging our macro policy, you have to say, you did this policy. For example, the president could have come and say, I will remove the tariff on rice and move the government, everybody else, into the domestic rice sector to provide jobs, so we can stop importing.
Okay.
You're talking about that kind of radical thing. We did not make such a policy. We'll explain why later on. So you have to judge and say, you did this policy and it backfired. You can never point to a policy that we did that backfired. What you can point to, you will never.
I wouldn't know your interpretation of backfire.
No,
from the economic standpoint, but I know that.
No, so
Mr. you absorb employees from state-owned enterprises
because our proper policy at the time, given the way the economy was going, the present policy is that I will not take bread from the mouth of a Liberian. I would probably, it's better off if the Liberian making $200 or $1,000 to reduce the higher income people to accommodate the lower people. That is the policy shift, but not to sack them and say we remove them from the government payroll. He will never support such a policy.
So you invited.
But the fact that we didn't invite. No, that's not an invitation. If you are judging the fact that because we didn't lay people off, so we made a mistake, I said no way. If you repeat this thing here, 2018. We will support that same policy of not laying Liberians off.
The structures were not strong enough. You should have built the structure.
So we adjusted the structure now to the level it needs to be.
Absorbing the employees from those state-owned enterprises, for example.
No. Who you absorbing?
You took employees from water and sewer payroll and absorbed them onto the CSA.
You
took them for transfer,
but at an affordable cost, meaning
those are that if the
wage bill
supplement the budget.
Yeah. So the right policy at the time is to say, we can't afford $32 million every month salary.
Okay.
We probably can afford $25 million. So let's do the adjustment. What you are suggesting is to say, well, the way to do it is to just take food from the table and put certain number of people off. The payroll is 70,000, but lay off 20,000 people. Obviously, if you're in a Malthusian economy, in a negative kind of economist, you would say, I don't care, 20,000 people lay off. Any finance minister will want to pay 40,000 Liberians versus paying 60,000 Liberians. So the other 20,000 Liberians, you are your own.
Don't forget
in
the
GSC
is blaming
economics
for adding more to the payroll. Don't forget about that.
No.
The GSC is saying it.
No. In fact, we pay for our cuts. We pay for the people who came on the payroll. The president reduced the salary of senior government official to that of a minister. There were people making $20,000, $15,000 before the president. The president said nobody can make more than a minister. Then he cascaded even the minister's salary downwards. So ministers are making the lowest since the end of the war. We are making relative to the ministers earning under President Salif. So that's the adjustment. The adjustment is the
what's the maximum a minister is making? The highest paid minister in Liberia now.
I think there's around
15,000.
No, why are you talking about 15,000?
5,000.
5,000 something change. That's what we're making now.
That was your recommendation.
Oh, of course, the harmonization. What harmonization did is to slash everybody first. 8%. We did an 8% cut across everybody.
Okay.
Then we did harmonization. We say, to get paid, you got to be paid according to your qualification. So we saved the country 1% of GDP, or around $32 million a year. That is a big, big thing. In 10 years, that's $320 million. Our saving in 10 years can finish Lofa Road and do the Southeast. If we had not done that, we would have collapsed. So the policy the president went to is to say, I will not lay off 25,000 Liberians like the Unity Party. I come from a poor background. I got heart. I got feeling for the Liberian people. I will keep them on the government payroll, but I will reduce the size of that payroll, keeping the same number of people. Any economy can look at it. When you're judging it from a practical economic standpoint, you say, Mr. President, there are inefficiencies here. When you're judging it from the real political world, where a human being is president, it's not machines that he cutting, you have to say the president did extraordinary relative to other presidents.
So we're dealing with economic management of the government in the wake of challenges that face both.
That's correct.
On an equal platform, the Unity Party biggest hurdle, which of course was a natural disaster, had to do with the issue of the Ebola crisis. Yours is the COVID-19.
Yeah.
Now COVID-19, it came too early for you. The Unity Party came into power. The second term of the former president in 2014 was when Ebola came. So substantial error she had enjoyed. But you just had one coming, especially at the early stage of that. Looking at the Ebola crisis versus the COVID-19, were you to do your economic analysis as per these variables that can undermine growth, how do you place your government in terms of tackling it versus the COVID-19 era?
COVID-19 was a regional crisis. Well, it was a sub-regional crisis.
Okay.
It's Sierra Leone, Guinea, Liberia. In fact, people were discriminating.
You mean Ebola?
Ebola was a sub-regional crisis. Ebola. If you came from Liberia, you went to America, but no, don't bring here America. Don't bring here. Oh, no. Don't go West Africa. Keep them there. So the world felt like it was not a global crisis. We're just confined here. So the economic impact is around the regional impact. Other people never felt that impact. COVID-19 was a global epidemic. It took 97 million human beings into poverty. 55 million of them in Africa. Ebola, a child's play relative to COVID. But look at now, Ebola, child's play relative to macroeconomic sense, right? COVID-19, a real global phenomenon, revenue collapsing, price of goods and services going up because the shipping line. You know why we abandoned the president's 4-year policy of keeping rice to 13? Nothing was threatening that policy. You know what threatened that policy? Both COVID and Ukraine war. They threatened that policy, especially the Ukraine situation. So we deal with COVID and we deal with Ukraine. So when you face with that kind of thing, and at the end of all that crisis since 2010, when people look at you and say, you are in COVID is 2020 hitting, right? 2021, your growth rate is 5%. Who are you, Liberia, George? Who are you? How is it that a year after COVID, you have a growth rate of 5%, 4.85%? Well, the same thing with Ebola. That story is not there. The reason is that we moved the fluff and went to real economics, to hard structural thing there. So the growth is stronger. At that time, you're still dealing with all.
But they were in front of cash during the Ebola crisis, and there were budget shortfalls. And your era, we didn't see the kind of cash coming in, where you got to manage the little you earn locally.
That's why we say the president is doing more with less. In fact, maybe some of the reasons why we didn't move bigger push on domestic revenue at the time is because we were relying on free thing. We got used to, free thing is good, but also bad. If somebody doing good for you and you're now preparing the day the person stops doing the good, you will turn that person into your enemy. And when they say, man, I can't pay your school fee, I can't support your children again, that your uncle will be your enemy now because he's taking the free thing away. That's what happened to Liberia. So when the time the free thing was going, we had to depend on ourselves. And the way to do it, we say, look, domestic resource, let's plug harder, let's dig deeper, let's fight. So we started growing the revenue base. I think we are government has added 3% of GDP to revenue. So that's what took the domestic revenue we inherited, we add 3%. We won't go to 6%. So 3% is average around 120 million. So you won't go to another 120 or 240 million. That was not there before we came. We now put there. I want to say on EFBC, it is this money that's paying for elections. Is this money that we're using for the CLSG lines? Yes, we have that fiscal space. Next year, when we're not paying for election, $51 million we're spending for the election, we will have 51 million to address health, education, infrastructure. The debate you guys should be pushing now on the radio is that now that the government is now paying the 51 million for election in 2024, what should the national legislature and the executive do with 51 million? Let's just stay at 51 million because we know we spend it, I think 5 years later. Let's say but at least no election next year. What are we going to do with that fiscal space? Then the question would then be, George generated that additional fiscal space, right, through domestic revenue. So he has the right to be re-elected to decide what will happen with it. Where are you people?
He has the right.
Yeah. No. Where are you people? No, hold on.
Dictator,
No, listen. He appealed to the Liberian police. Okay, let me
at least you said,
okay, yeah, revise. Your contact. He tell the Liberian people say, I found the money. I found 120 million for you. I use the election. Next year, I'm not going election. I got $51 million to spend for you. But I said, no. You put me there. I won't be the one to divide that 51 million. He might not divide it. Then the question the voter will say, but Baga, your time, why you're in find that fiscal space depending on foreign resources?
You keep running.
So Judge, we are supposed to be the one to come and tell what we'll do with the 51 million next year. So let's divide right now. We put 20 million. Education alone, education said we need $100 million per year to transform the education system. So if we put that 51 million education, it's not going to solve it. But somebody will say, man, Minister, you can put all there. Let's give education 20 million, carry up a little bit. Let's give health 10, stay left with 20. Put 10 in road, the other 10 spread it around, and I mean, you should be pressing the government. The president say, let's see how you do. Now, that's for the 51. But at 120, we're talking about the CLSG law, we pay for it small, we'll do other things. That one too will go off. So by the time election finish, we're no longer paying for CLSG. The president. And the crowning glory of George Weah's legacy is that he found this new money through domestic revenue mobilization, minimum that you can deploy over the next 4 or 5 years to solve big problems that we're not able to solve because we're just using external money to pay high salary like 25,000. I mean, some people are making 25,000 in the former government. When you look at Liberia and say somebody making $15,000 a month, $20,000 a month in a broken country where 2.1 million people were poor. That government, look, let me tell you something. The debate we should be having here is not a debate between CDC and Unity Party. Let's be honest.
You want to drag us to politics? We'll go
no, hold on, we're coming there. The debate here should be maybe between CDC and ANC. Because CDC is 5 years, achieving things that we're able to do that Unity Party were able to do in 12 years. Unity Party coming by and telling Liberian people, no, move CDC. Well, you're there 12 years, and we do 300, we've done 347 kilometers of road. In the last 12 years, how many roads you did? What you did? Electricity. You took 12 years, and you built an 88 megawatt power. If George Weah elected, we're going to build 200 megawatts of electricity capacity of 250 in 12 years. So you cannot be the one coming back to challenge you. Ladies, I'm not coming. Tell the kind of challenge that everyone say, look, don't put UP there, but I'm not there. If George Weah did 347, when I get out, I would do 1,000. Let him make the promises at least.
That's an argument that is understandable.
It's understandable because my man, I should be saying it because the man we're trying to. You're here telling me say the man broke the economy. Our economy, I was supposed to predict. No. I can't predict the future. We can manage the situation. When the crisis breaks, we then advise the president on the policies. And all the policies that we advise the president or the president inaugurated, no borrowing from the central bank.
Are there some of these policies intentional or unintentional? The reason I'm asking this question is that back in 2016, I remember having an interview with former U.S. Ambassador Christian Ennis. And one thing we talked about was the issue of the budget and her own appreciation of the Liberian budget. And she said that I think the donors are getting more fatigued supporting a budget that most of it goes towards recurrent expenditure, and the country does not want to fund its own development, but we should bring in our money, then they put into the salaries of people and in the pockets of people. Now, these policies, prescriptions you put in place, were they as a result of donors' pressure or so forth, and say that, look, if you don't harmonize, we cannot give you our money, we cannot give you the kind of support, we cannot invest in roads while you are there putting your money in the pockets of people?
The protocol was not, no. The president did propose cut. The president announced his cut long before we entered the IMF program. So the reform that we're talking about here is about the PAPD and our vision for the country. So when we started to do those reforms, harmonization was not from the IMF. Harmonization came from the government after the president proposed cut. When we saw
that was risky politically.
Well, of course, the government job. Let me tell you, the job of a president is not to play politics with the Liberian people or with his people. It's to tell them the honest. We can say in Liberia, God fair true.
But you don't believe in that?
They will believe in that. Let me tell you one thing about the Liberian people. If you lie to them, they know. If you look them in the eye and say, we will do this, they will believe you.
Have you ever disguised yourself and sat on a commercial bus and listened to
Civil servants mean
Yeah.
will reward you for these kind of policies.
Listen, civil servants are 70,000 in the government. Okay. Let's say every civil servant takes care of 10 Liberians.
750,000.
The country's population is 5.2 million. Subtract 5.2 million, subtract 720,000.
No, registered.
Yeah.
Let's look at
the end of the day, stay. No, at the end of the day. No. Listen, now let's be honest. The president is telling the Liberian people that I'm fighting for the country. There are Liberians who will never take government salary, but who will depend on a road to make a living. They are hearing me in Nimba County. They are hearing me in Maryland. Some of them. There are Liberians who family, since they were born in the last 30 years, have never worked for a government.
Okay.
A president has to look at the broader net. If the president decides to play politics with the country will not move. We have played politics with this country here. That is the reason why, 42 years after we killed President Talbot, we still can't grow rice because we're playing politics. So at some point in time, you need a George Weah to say, look, and somebody told me, say, but you know the president that's supposed to, your Rawlings is George Weah because obviously he's a popular man. If he takes tough measures, people will withstand it. So maybe he has
vote for him.
They'll vote for him.
Does,
So we're using his popularity to really fight for the country, to make tough decisions. And so harmonization was a tough decision. But at the end of the day, what choice do you have? They said do harmonization or collapse. What do you do?
So, Mr.
You will do harmonization and not collapse because here's the point. Yeah, we began doing a lot of reforms that never happened. I asked that question myself. All the reforms that we're doing here, even when we enter the IMF program, I asked the last mission chief. I said, let me tell you something. We're doing a lot of reforms. You got to give your credit. These people did not do these reforms. Yet, the flow of money that came to them, nobody questioned. Norwegian, American, European tax dollars came to this country and were paying a salary of $25,000 for the second 6 years of Madam Seli's presidency, for example. You didn't say anything about that. There was no structure in the wage. One driver can get up, and one minister can get up and pay his driver $2,000. Whereas a medical doctor in that government was making $700. It was George Weah who took medical doctor's salary from $700 to $2,000. Drivers were making more than doctors. The driver that took you to the hospital was earning more than the doctor that was treating you. That was the country then. So why is it that you can give all credit? The woman say, look, we are here. You are a new government. We also say we are new in Liberia. These reforms that you're doing will benefit you tomorrow. Very soon. And I started with Paul Collier, the economist from Oxford. Had a dinner with him in Washington, D.C. He said, Mr. Minister, I advise presidents like your president and ministers of finance that you have to make the tough decision in year 1 and year 2. For you in Liberia, you got 6 years. So make the tough decisions in the first 2 years. By the time you reach year 4, year 5, you will see the fundamental shifting. So in some ways, everything that Paul Collier said is what happened in Liberia. If we were afraid to make the tough decision and afraid we would have come around 2001 and start thinking about 2021, 22 to start thinking about that. And by now, we'll still be doing harmonization while the election coming. Paul Collier said, you try that one, you lose election. You do it the other way, the people will see the benefits of the reform. They are human beings, they can understand. You just need to explain to them, they will feel it. When they start seeing the impact, they trickle down. They'll say, Lord, we're going to give you a second chance. So don't be afraid. Tell your president, make tough decisions. The president was not afraid.
Okay.
He took all the tough decisions that were taken. And today, Liberia is a macroeconomic exception in the West African region.
So let me borrow your word, but you're saying Liberian men says talk the God virtue. You don't want to lie to Liberians.
Yeah,
two concerns. This issue about this harmonization, everywhere the opposition community went, they campaign on the basis of you or your boss who took the decision to introduce the harmonization by slashing the salaries. What's the real story behind it? And another thing I wanted to explain, what is the current status of the coastal defense project? Will it be fair to say that the RI will not be completed before elections?
Okay, let's do harmonization and go to coastal defense. The story about harmonization is not a story of salary cut, because 15,000 civil servants, government workers, got higher salary. 15,000. You say, let's count the cost. Let's count it. 15,000 persons got higher pay. 6,000 to 7,000 persons got lower pay.
Okay.
So that narrative doesn't hold out between 15,000 Liberians and 7,000 Liberians. So usually the people who were making higher made adjustment for their brothers. It's a patriotic responsibility. We owe it to them. We're saying those Liberians who took the cut for the other Liberians who were at the bottom. This is when we write a story about George Weah, these are the images that will stand out. One patriotic group of Liberians making room for other Liberians to share their space by coming up, and they making the sacrifice. That was why. All for the system to remain intact. Otherwise, the system was going to close. So it's not a salary cut. It's also about fairness in our Liberian society. Our constitution says everybody should have equal chance, opportunity, equitable opportunities based on their qualification. Why would you pay one driver in one ministry $200 and pay another driver $1,500 because of his connection to a government worker? We abolish that kind of discretion from the wage and say, let's do salary based on your education, your level, your experience, and all of that. That's where. Is the system perfect as it is? I would never tell you it is. Nothing is perfect, but we are substantially different than the last 12 years under the Unity Party, where the pay was based on where you say you call your own like your salary. Somebody will walk in the ministry and say, I want to make 3,000. Now why do we make you? The other person will say, I want to make 4,000. Now why do we give you? Oh, let's be honest. Oh, my man, so you are negotiating your salary on the so that Western.
What was the salary you negotiated for yourself? That was a negotiation error.
7,000. As an economist, I was making 7,000. I'm making
your suggestion.
I'm making less money now.
So you 7,000 on your suggestion.
So let me honest, the system at the time.
So indirectly,
that system, me minister, that the system I presiding over. No, listen. The work I did for this country, the competitive work I did, that salary.
There were some of your colleagues who said they came to sacrifice.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, the salary I made are the fact.
Okay.
Our system, they want. I'm now a policy maker in the Unity Party government. I'm a policy maker. I'm a regulator. I'm a policy man. I can set the direction of policy. So we did not allow that on our. So system now is to say, look, let's go to affordability. Let's go to realism. So it's not that you can pay a consultant 7,000. I'm not saying that. Yeah, but that arbitrariness where people who are not even qualified for 7,000 are making 9,000 in the government. Everybody coming from America, flying to the country. All the people you see, everybody flying, they're getting free salary. They're not spending much time in the country. Everybody going back to America. That system has ended with George Weah. And that's why the poor people know about George Weah. Everything in Liberia now is about being in Liberia here. So our wages are fair. So when harmonization story is written, it will be a story that lifted Liberians who are in the government, 15,000 of them upwards. It will be a story that ended this discretionary, thing where anybody can pay anybody anything in the country that is poor, that doesn't have the kind of resources to develop. When you should be putting that money into electricity and roads, you're putting it behind friends and other people who are in the upper class, while the majority of our people don't have. How can you pay somebody $15,000, $20,000 in this government? It's not fair. So that is the contribution. In terms of the coastal project, you're asking about the
RIA rule.
The RIA. I made a comment. I said we're living in the Tubman era. Anybody can challenge me in that. No president has affected the Tubman legacy. The Liberia I grew up in is still the Liberia I see. The Capitol building, the executive mansion, all in the judicial system are all sitting right there. Basic Tubman Boulevard is still intact. We're not being able to connect 12th Street to what they call Crown Hill to. So we have not changed Tubman's country. The president who is trying to do that is George Weah. Tubman Girl 2-lane RIA road. 60 years later, we have it. Who's challenging that? Who's making RIA road for you? And just think about that. Little things. That's what the people now know about George Weah. This man is talking about the overpass to the the SKD Boulevard. even the ministerial complex for the first time. That's a challenge to the top man because you travel to the other country, you see simple overpasses, you come to Liberia, you can't because we're living in top man. So George Weah is a president that has bold, big ideas to move the country to the next stage of development. When development happens, when you do large infrastructure, when you work with the small players as well, more money will come to the country. If you keep the country small, where the population was 1 million, we had 2-lane RI road. We have 5.2 million, coming go to 6 million. We're still sitting down on 2-lane roads. No. Hydro, 88 megawatt for 60 years, it's not possible. 66. After the war, we just added 20. That idea that our facility could not move from in our cost. I went to the annual meeting of the IMF in Brunei. I don't know Brunei now. The Brunei finance minister who was sharing the table with me, he asked me, he said, we do a lot of infrastructure projects in Brunei. How much do you guys pay? I said, we build an 88 megawatt facility. We spend around 350 million or so there. He said, I can give you three hydro for that cost. Roads. Our roads sometimes tend to be very expensive. So as a country, we need to pay attention to all these things. This is what George Weah is challenging us.
Okay.
So let's reduce these large infrastructure costs and be able to do more. So if the story is as high as it that under these tough times, George Weah is doing 346 kilometers of road, given all the situation. Why is it that, all these hospitals are under construction? He's doing free tuition. I mean, free tuition alone, okay, about $4 million a year, $4 million a year. You multiply $4 million times 6 years. Somebody asked, where that money went? Why you didn't put that money? Why the other government? That money went to salary, higher salary. Our money is going to the university students, the community college students who are earning. 27,000 students now have access to higher education. They can go college because President George Weah has abolished the tuition cost. Some of paid tuition fee. We used to struggle to look for it at that time. About $25 per credit hour at that time. To get it, we used to walk by land. We used to go hustle. George Weah scholarship. George Weah putting on scholarship. All University of Liberia were hustling for that thing. The students today don't know that hustle. They don't know that struggle. All they need to do is to sit down in the calculus book, read, eat their small little rebel because they don't got to worry about cost. Worry about competitiveness. The small money they get, they can go back credit and go online to MIT, to Harvard. All those things are free online. We never had those kind of opportunities. George Weah is giving our students.
But that is towards the public university. What about the private universities and so forth? Not everyone can go to the state-run university. We're talking about the Ministry of Education runs scholarship programs. Most of the schools are complaining about being indebted and about the government of Liberia, and some of these students are struggling. You got to concentrate on them as well.
It's kind of private schools are run from the endowment, from the contribution that students.
So the Ministry of Education runs scholarship program. So you are having a local scholarship program.
Yeah, but the program we're saying no education, no cost at the public university.
Yeah, we know that.
That's the situation.
But other people who not at public university, who are Liberians as well, they
got scholarship.
benefit from
scholarship to private schools. We even have subsidy. We got support to private institutions like Cotton.
No, I'm talking about the Ministry of Education runs scholarship program. There's a scholarship program scheme that I benefited from as well.
Yeah,
and it's just for scholars, and that program had been there. You got to pay.
You have to, but we got scholarship. So I mean, I'm trying to see where you're going with the question because
the question is that some of these students are complaining that indeed they are going to the universities and they say that government is not settling them, so they are putting them out of school.
No, if you're saying government has a scholarship program for a subset of students in private school, yes. Are we paying the money? Yes. Students in Morocco, a lot of students.
No, not that. I'm talking about local scholarship.
Yeah, there may be delay, but we have it. But that's a small number of students in that school versus the whole population of students on university who are going there from their mind and power income. So that's the point. So you want to compare a free public university, you have to look at the whole totality, not just the government can't go into a private university and say, let everybody go there free. The government will have a scholarship program, the government will have support to that institution, like other people, they will receive some support. By the end of the day, they are largely private.
This means that I think you need to follow up on this MOE local scholarship issue is very important because most of the universities, the private universities, are having issue with government payment, timely payment. So I think you need to follow.
No, that's a different debate. The question is,
there's not a debate. It's a concern that you need to follow up.
The public school is free. Then you say the private school, the government behind on the private school. I want to try to see where you going with the argument.
Osikawa is in AMU, Oliver is in UMU. We are not in state university.
That's fine.
We are on government scholarship.
First thing, government is taking care of students in private school.
So
the first point.
Those in private school are Liberians.
We have a situation where nobody pays for public school. We got a scholarship program on a private school.
Yes.
What is the issue?
The issue is you are not paying.
No, we can be delayed some but we have a program that we're paying the student school fee. If I ask you how many students have graduated over the last 5 years from government support to a private school, those students will come here. That would be the question. So the contribution to the policy is that the policy exists. We're not able to widen it. I thought your question was going to be, you are only covering 3% of private schools. Mr. Minister, can you cover 25%?
No, our interest is 3% you're covering.
No, hold on. The 3% we said in there. Government payments, government payment to students, all that one, Ministry of Education, it's being run. People are getting paid. The university, these schools are working with us. We're giving them stuff. We're telling them, let the students go. That's fine. So the debate can be because we have free tuition. So
being minister, you don't sound authoritative on this matter.
How?
This is not a summit to I know. On this MOE local scholarship, you don't sound authoritative.
But we are paid.
No, listen, I will not sit here. Listen, we need a fact check. I will not sit here and tell you something that you will go back on and say the Minister of Education is the authority. I work with the Minister of Education in terms of providing resources. He will tell you the status of these programs. What I'm telling you here,
the Ministry of Public Works to know the status of roles.
Yeah,
so what about you consulting the Ministry of Education?
Of course, but this issue is just coming up. I mean, I want to read it right
so
now.
You didn't see this concern coming?
No, it doesn't. No, the question is that I didn't see the concern. You're telling me, say, is the government current on all its scholarship payment to school? I will tell you no. But I will not tell you, say, it is 100% not current. So there may be some issues there. Payments are in process. So the question should not be that the government is perfectly on the 3%. No, that's not a debate. The debate, the government is perfect on public schools. Nobody paying. But the subset of students that the government gives scholarship to, it provides payments to them. If your argument is that, it provides payments, some of the students want money, the school ain't pay. I want to.
So let's go to infrastructure.
Before infrastructure on the issue of education, Mr. Minister, are you aware there are issues at the State University of Liberia? The Faculty Association are accusing your office of not living up to your commitment. You signed a memorandum of understanding with them. The administration announced reopening of academic year should have been the 26th. We're into July. What's going on?
When we tell the story of the University of Liberia, people will say, but you're sure what you're doing? The University of Liberia gets teachers at the University of Liberia at the highest paid in West Africa. We increased their salary by more than 40. We promised to increase the salary by about 100%. We have gone 40%. So when you're standing today, the teachers that teach at the University of Liberia are making 40% more than they ever dreamed about making in the last 12 years.
What's the minimum? You're going to speak to in terms of numbers.
I will not get into all that. I'm just telling you that we have increased the salary by 40%.
Okay.
We did promise that we're going to go to, so in other words, we're going to 100. If somebody are making 500, 100%, we're carrying them to 1,000. If somebody are making 2,000, we're carrying them to 4,000. That's the commitment we made. We said we'll do 40%, then we will do credential audit. I said, let's do the credential audit. All those teachers that pass the credential audit are the ones who get the 60%.
Yeah,
that's
it. Fair enough.
Fair enough. We're working with it. Even that. We even walk by on some of them, and people tell me, Minister, the election, everybody putting everything in election because people will protest. But I'm just saying this to say that the university professor in Furabe wants to come to the University of Liberia to earn the salary that Liberian teachers are making. It's fair enough. Let's give George Weah the credit when it comes to the university, what he has done there. Okay. So I tell the faculty people all the time, you got to look at the reality. We have done well for the university professors.
Okay, so I was talking about infrastructure and economic benefits of infrastructures. You don't just build places because if you're not building them, there should be dividends, which is very much essential. Yeah. The last time I listened to Ambassador Joseph Yumabwaka, he was trying to grade the community role where he lived. He said these are non-essential roles. Economically, they are not viable and so forth. Now, the next argument that has now been proffered, especially in the opposition circles, is that most of these projects and infrastructures that you're running with is they are making. These are just time bound and they are happening at the time they're supposed to happen. You cannot be bragging about them. Talking about the Ganta Road, talking about with the exception of the RIA Road, which of course I know how it was switched from Jirejua to RIA. But other projects they are saying that no. Even the hard road project in Lofa County, these are all town-bound projects that they were going to happen, even if you are not come to power. Nima as well.
When you go to the election, the opposition that wants power will say anything. The reality is that we are doing these roads. Some of the thing about these roads is that you have to meet effectiveness condition before money comes. Okay. For example, this is the 5 million loan that was part of the budget, which we'll talk about later. It's not going to come unless you meet certain governance criteria. We make commitment to meeting them. If you don't meet them, all the IMF program, all the different things, the World Bank will not give you that 65 million. Okay. So the work is not in the commitment that we sign. So when I sign a budget support of 65 million, I'm agreeing to work on milestones that everybody will verify before the money is released. Okay. If I don't do that work, the money will not come. In 2019, we did not get budget support of 20 million from a partner. So just because you sign some agreement and you don't go, and the quality of that agreement was probably, and we had to come to renegotiate and do everything.
Several of those agreements have quality.
The Lofa Road. The Lofa Road had quality defects. Nothing was going to happen on Lofa Road. Had we just taken the agreement from the previous government, sat it down, if we had done nothing on that road, if we had gone by the agreement that they had, the Lofa Road would have stayed the same. We'll be doing other roads. We had to go inside the agreement, renegotiate it before payments start coming. So we're doing the work. So I'm telling you, there are preconditions, there are milestones that you have to meet. This is road, Ganta Road. We are paying for this road from the budget. From the budget. So then I know that a government funded road, the Nima Road, the Ganta Sakapia Road, is government funded from the national.
How come Prince Johnson is saying that these are all World Bank projects?
They're not propaganda. They're not politics.
He's a lawmaker.
Okay, everybody here
are flying around.
So the job of a politician, especially a Liberian politician who wants to mislead the Liberian people, is to lie to them. Because maybe through that lie, he feels that many Liberians are not, the time it would take them to find the truth, or by that time he finished getting his election. So that's why, you see why I'm going to be on the radio. I'm going to be for the next 3 months. We have done the serious work in this country, and nobody will derail our record. You will community radio. I'll go in the community. We will explain the economic to our people.
Why?
Nobody.
What is the
knowledge
about this IFA project, IFA support to road construction in Nima? Because I'm sure that's what AB is referring to.
Especially the feeder roads.
That's what Senator Johnson had to say. He said the CDC government is boasting about the improvement of feeder roads in Nima. Mm-hmm. But this claim is misleading and deceitful. The feeder road project you see in Nima today was initiated by IFA during the regime of former President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. The purpose was to purchase cocoa butter. The CDC government made promises to construct markets and hospitals, but they have misappropriated the funds for their projects without actually building them in the market.
Okay, Senator Johnson, since you asked a question about him, is a politician who is right now the people of Nimba County having seen what the president is doing, going to go with the president, and he's worried about that because the president is being judged for what he's doing in Nimba. We sent schools of people there who are doing surveys, and we know the impression of coming from Nimba County.
That's all you have to say.
No, I'm coming. So his job is to continue to say things that are not true. Feeder roads from 2018 to now, between SIDA, the Swedish Development Agency, AFAD, and all of these roads were built to the tune of almost 400 kilometers of feeder roads have come alive in Nima County. Working with our government. So I don't understand, the senator is just trying to be the senator who he is. The facts are that we built.
I see you trying to be very careful in responding to Senator Johnson. Is it because of the relationship that is it?
Listen. The relationship is that Senator Johnson supported the president and he took the president to the people of Nima. The situation now is that the people of Nima, having seen this president, is a developmental hero. He has done extraordinary. The number of projects in Nima County, overwhelming. The people have seen it. They are saying they want the man to continue their road project, all that stuff. So they're going to vote for him. President Johnson is going to them saying, I want you to not support him. They're asking him the question, what have we seen? Maybe you've seen something we're not seeing, because you brought this man, he's developing the country, and maybe all the challenges he's doing well. Why should we remove from behind him?
Yeah, that's just like you owe Nima County 5 million and refusing to pay the money.
No, I don't. No, he said 5, he said 7.
What I see here is 5.
Yeah, 5, but we don't owe Nima 5.
How much do you owe Nima?
I have the data here. We have paid Nima 5 million. I believe we owe Nima about 1 point something million. I have the data here. So everything he's saying is amplified, so that we're in a room of fact check. He said we owe Nima 5. I'm saying here also we don't owe Nima 5 million, according to your latest information. I used to hear 7. I heard him say 7. He's revised down. He's revising because he knows we've paid Nima County. We owe most of these counties. So the total sum collected for all these counties was around 21 million. Government has paid 17 million to all these different counties. So on average, just by that bulk, social development fund collect 21, pay 17. That's how much we owe. We spread it across the country. We're working with the counties to be able to deliver this. So this time, everybody should know what the president has done. It was Senator Johnson who looked at President Weah and said, President Weah, before you, we were not getting all these things. Since you came, in fact, you are the one making Asalamita, for example, to pay directly. We have looked at, we're signing a MOU after and say 20%, I think, or 25%, don't give it. Go and give it to the community themselves.
Okay.
President Weah did that. President Johnson, find the clip. Find his remark about him telling the president, thank you. If you can find it, I will have to look for it. Those are the messages that will be played on Nima Radio.
Are you sorry he left?
Listen, a politician, the politician will always love people to be around him. But the reason why he left, I will not be sad about that, because he's saying he's leaving for his own personal motive. And so there's nothing to be sad about. That's why I know. Oh, I know what I think. I know, because he's saying the president is owing Nima 7 or 5 million, and that is not true. That the president is not doing development in Nima. The president is doing more development in Nima on a per capita basis than he's doing in the Southeast. So let's say that. So if people are angry, the Southeastern people could be angry. This president is not tribalist. Imagine if the president came to office and say, I will focus on my Southeastern people. By now, what kind of conversation we're going to be having? The evidence is going to be saying, oh, this man is a racist, he's a tribalist, he only knows people. He didn't. The president says development will be where the logic of development is. And large populations, centrality, all these things, he spread the development. He is not looking at the country and say, I'm from Grand Cruz, so I will do development there. No. The development is taking shape based on the economic necessity.
Okay.
So that's it. Senator Johnson looks at all of that, and then the people at Nima know that, and then he's saying he's removing. But it's a fatal mistake. It's a fatal mistake that they've made. Because basically, what you're telling the Liberian people, Prince Johnson and Jeremiah Kung are with the CDC. They've supported CDC policies for 5 years. They have no credibility. That's why I'm telling you, the people who have credibility to engage CDC, if I want to get in a debate, I don't want to get in a debate with United Party people. Who am I going to debate with? I've reversed all their policies. The president reversed all the policies, and we're going. The people we want to debate with are the people who've never had a chance to even say, what kind of policies? Okay, macroeconomics. It's not coming. What are your macro policies? United Party had no macro policy. They were depending on surplus. We flushed that. The debate is meant to tell me, Cummings is supposed to stay now. I will improve upon your macro policies, but I'm not United Party. They were there 12 years, the car pack. Well, you come here on this side to do what you can make it. So the people know that one.
We've already transitioned into politics, and we didn't even know. We didn't even know.
Right now, 3 months to election, development policy will all be mixed.
So we got 99 days for the people to decide whether you remain finance minister, with the support of the president.
No, that decision to remain prime minister, not on the people. The decision is on the president.
And I said,
the president win. The president can not make me finance minister.
And I said, with the support of the president. That's how I ended it.
Let's be clear.
Now, what is the status of salary payment? As we're going towards the process, you don't want people going to the ballot box when the government still owes them some money. How current is the issue of salary payment?
We're largely current. We're not. Look, we'll be honest. You see, we're the ones who are honest with the Liberian people. We're not afraid of them. We tell them the truth.
We still got small issues.
Yeah, we got that strong. We want to be as more current level, but the 25th. Everybody that we used to be, right? And then the small issues. One of it has to do with the large upfront payments that were made to NEC. So if you move NEC money, 46 million, move it all up front. Again, talking about financing elections, this is the first time where the Ministry of Finance is taking cash up front way before and giving it to the National Election Commission, putting it into their account. To the extent that it's sitting there.
Okay.
It doesn't happen in this country. It happened here. The reason why the president mandated that was to say, look, I don't want any financial risk to the holding of the election. So that other thing where you can do the cash flow based, no, just move the money to NEC. And I think we probably owe NEC only 6 million now in the budget.
Okay.
So pretty much NEC sitting strong.
Today is the 3rd of July.
When you do all that one, you subject the cash flow of the government will be disturbed. And some of it was impacted by that. So we are currently in the process where I think today is 3rd of July and we are we're paying June. We're paying June. And I can tell you by June, by the time we hit the middle of July, we'll be in the position to be where we were 1 year, 2 years ago, where people are getting their pay by the 25th of every month.
At what percentage, are you with reference to the payment of June salary?
June just ended. I think I will have to consult with my people.
So technically, you still owe some people for June.
I believe we're paying June.
But why will you be owing when you are posting a budget surplus? Wow.
You see, the question is this question about budget surplus and all that stuff.
You were the one who brought it up.
Hold on, a budget. You can't. It comes to the thing that you're gonna. I mean, I don't want to be economic, but I understand it. But when you have your budget. If an ordinary man get $200 in your house, is that what he making? That he budget there.
Sure. So give people their budget.
Hold on. He get a budget of 200. His problem in our house at 1,000, but his budget at 2,000. You getting me? His problem, the money he want at 1,000 every month.
Sure.
The budget he living on that 200. But this man who living on a $200 budget, because he is disciplined, he like to credit to go get a girlfriend, anything. He managed such a way that at the end of the day, he look at all the expenses. He said, look, actually, I can manage with 175 because I need to waste money on plenty of things. That man is effectively running a budget surplus.
Bring it down to the people in the salary issue.
But that's what I'm saying. No. So the question of the fact that you say you have a budget surplus is relevant to that 200. So that other $25 that he calls surplus business. But it doesn't mean that because he has a $25 he calls surplus. So the $1,000 need that he get, he's supposed to be able to solve it. Okay. I had the people confusing the people. So I'm making it in the people 10. The man need $1,000, but he got a budget of 200, and he managed in that 200 budget not to spend 200, but he spent 175 and put 25 down. Simple budget.
So surpassing your target does not mean it's enough to handle your needs.
Because a man looking for 1,000 and he only get 200, but he still waiting at another man need 1,000, he get a budget of 200, he spends 600. That the Unity Party then. John we are get budget of 200, he spend 175. Unity Party get budget of 200, they spend 600. So those two people, who you will want to sit down with to talk?
So you said by the 15th you'll go back to where we were.
The question now is that revenue comes to the consolidated account every day, 1 million, 2 million, and we're looking for around 25, 26, 27 million to be able to bring salary current. Okay, so if there are small issues with cash flow, there will be small delay. Now, the Unity Party could go to the central bank as we speak right now. I could go to the central bank and pay people for June. And so when the July revenue come, I give it back to the central bank. President Weah has stopped that. Everybody say, how you? So you don't borrow. I'm asking the question. You don't. What are your financing need? You don't borrow from the central bank. You're not borrowing. How you going? I say, we are nomics. We're managing it. We're going.
We are nomics.
We are nomics.
I'd like to ask you this last political question from our end, and then maybe we'll
go around the table. Yeah.
But the Unity Party.
What is happening with the Chapel Freeway? It's always dark in the night. Beautiful road. Is it that because perhaps the big guys don't live on that side? Why is it always dark?
I think not people are big guys. I mean, the electricity situation in the country has, as the American ambassador has said, it's getting better. And I mean saying that last time I played, you play the American basketball voice there now you're So the ability to supply, and despite the fact that we got more people connecting. 10 years ago, the electricity access rate, how many percent? Few people. Even they say 7, 8, 10%. Today we're around 43%. If you take it in the urban population to have access to electricity, thanks to the president, all the measures that he's doing, all the monies that we pump into LEC. Look, if we're taking all our money for LEC will not be able to function. LEC, GST taxes, we're giving it back to them.
So, Mr. Minister, we got to go. Austin got one last political question.
Not because of that. No, I don't want to complete the question. Not because rich people, but generally there will be challenges here and there. Now we're just beginning the hydro has 4 turbines. Right now, I think only 1 turbine is up and really running. One of the turbines for the Americans are fixing that. So by the time look at the time, you just build a hydro and the turbine falling. George, you are smart and say, oh, the procurement was substandard. How can you just finish the hydro the turbine spoil? You're all talking now. The American people are offering money, they said they'll fix it. So by the time the rainy season comes with the CLG, all that power thing you're talking about over there, not see it. Okay. So sometimes during the dry season, we just manage the shedding. That's why you see some lay on, some lay not on.
So we're about to take
calls. When climate begs, then you take the calls. But you managed to stabilize the rate. But of recent, it's skyrocketing. What's the government doing?
Well, the government just came up with a regulation quite recently, right? We're another country where people can negotiate rate, and it should not be that way. When you go to a supermarket or you go pay your school fee, you have a choice to pay in. Since we're a dual currency country, meaning Liberian dollar and US dollar, you should know how much something costs in each currency based on the exchange rate. But here, when the post say you pay $200 US in your school fee, when you go and tell the principal, you have Liberian dollar, they'll tell you, say, give me 195 when the rate is 170. If you're a parent who looking there, you want your child to enter school, you say, okay, so you pay more. That person walks away with what they call profit. That's cool. When you walk to the school, you should see on the signboard the exchange rate, and that rate you should be using. But it's not happening like that. So because of rate negotiation, people they're losing a lot of money, and that also helps spiral the exchange rate. So we're trying to stop all of that. There are some other structural things that we're working on, to make sure we go back to our stable regime. Economics is an up and down business. The goal of a policymaker is to work within that time frame to keep it stable. You're managing all sides. There's no magic bullet you press, no light switch, say something can also go up. There's a lot of things happening at the same time. And as you go to election, we have evidence that instability gets more. There is what economists call people uncertain. Some people, the way they can spend, they're not spending. Some people hold back. People not sure or certain thing that can have a trickle-down effect in the economy also. So all these things we're looking at. Yeah.
I think we can go to the telephone lines, because I don't know what you have on your plate.
Oh, yes.
I needed you to respond to the naming of Senator Yombli Kanga Lawrence as the campaign manager for the Unity Party campaign team by Mr. Braga. Should it be a concern for you and your campaign team as we move towards elections?
And a follow-up to that is, how soon do we expect to see your own campaign team popping up?
I think the campaign team will soon be announced. The party chairman will address that. There's no reason to be afraid of. There's no reason to be afraid of the Unity Party because the Liberian people know the Unity Party record.
Okay,
I'm be honest with you. So, Senator Yombli, Kanga was not chosen to be the vice standard bearer, even though she stood with the Unity Party they did a lot of lies against our government, but at least they stood together in forming those lies against the CDC government. You would think that the establishment there would say, look, since you fought with us, you lied together, we fought together, come and left for the regime. They said no, they came on our side. So in their judgment, only people from our side can run the country. Only people from our side have the ideas to be able to do things. So they came and they rejected their own. So we ain't got no reason to be scared. And because of that choice, we think we can move to first round in this election because of that.
Okay, he's the Minister of Finance. were you coming in? Okay, so he's Minister Samuel TWEAH Jr., the Liberian Minister of Finance. If you're listening to us, visit Freedom Hub on 87.9. My name is Kai. Austin Kawad is also here on this edition. Jerome Roosevelt is from Kings FM. We have Winston Blyden. Winston Blyden is from Banana FM there in Logan Town. We have a list of community radio stations across the country. Those of you listening to us on Echo Radio in Riverses, the Voice of Gompa in Gantanema County, Radio Bombing in Bombing County, Radio Piso in Cape Mount, Sma FM in Zweju, Radio Sengwai in Saniquedanema County, Super Bongis in Bong County, radios Sino, Voice of Sino in Sino County, Radio Bombing as well, Alternative Youth Radio in Lofa, the Voice of Hope in Plebo, Maryland County. For those of you listening via these channels, you can call us on 080-4835-24. Only for those of you outside of Montserrado, 080-4835-24. The rest of you can join us on 0776-104-104, 086-500-104. And those of you outside of the country can join us on +231 86-500-104. Let's go over and talk to the first batch of calls right here on 87.9. The first person, go ahead. What's the name? Where do you join us from?
Good evening to my fellow family from back home. I'm Tarista calling from the United States, to be precise, Fargo, North Dakota.
Go ahead.
Okay, so let me just say a big thank you to our dynamic minister, Minister TWEAH. Thank you for such a brilliant expose. And my question happens to go to my team of journalists there that said concerning the issue of the PAPD. And the minister replied that you can set up all of the indicators, but you look at some projection and you can still have an error. So let's take an example of the Sustainable Development Goals. These goals were set by higher institutions and decision body making. But these decision making, they never projected the issue of the COVID. The Sustainable Development Goals talk about this 17 pillars that talk about food, agriculture, security, and what have you. So when you set these goals, they are realistic, but you look at some issues affecting war, and you understand that these things need to be repaired and continue to monitor while you are making this progress. Okay. So thank you, Minister TWEAH. We are with you from the social media influencer. We got your back, and we make sure that George we are retained the another six years. Thank you so much.
We'll leave you right there. Let's take this other person. Go ahead. 1 minute. Let's hear you. Hello?
Oh, yeah, hello?
Your name and where do you join us from?
Oh, I'm joining you from Fargo, North Dakota. I'm calling. My name is SteadyTailLion.com, the chairman for operation of a citizen.
From Fargo, go ahead. From Fargo, let's hear you.
Yeah, well, the dynamic finance minister in the studio, Samuel TWEAH, you have said it all, absolutely. George Minor, we are due to the issue of multiple development and being very, decentralized, kind of a president, reaching out to the fifth sub-region. That would be the main reason why President we are being re-elected.
Very much. That would be the main reason. We got to rush on the time. This other person, what's the name? Where you join us from?
Good evening, Khan. This is Bernardo, and I'm from Morocco.
From Morocco, go ahead. From Morocco, let's hear.
From Morocco. Yes, thank you. So I just like to ask these questions to Minister TWEAH. Sir, I'm concerned, sir. This was the harmonization, the issue of harmonization, was it intended to give total disregard to degree levels and experiences and embrace the issue of competence? 1, 2, harmonization was infatuated. Was it intended to address issue of high salary? If so, if yes, is it true that the wage bill has increased beyond previous? These are the two questions I'd like for him to address. Thank you.
We leave you right there. Let's take this other person quickly. What's your name? Where you join us from?
These are the two questions I'd like.
Hello. What's your name? Where you join us from?
Thank you, KOK. My name is Aaron. I'm calling from Pennsylvania. CDC International Gatekeeper. Thank you, Mr. TWEAH, for outlining all the Google work the government have been doing and continue to do. The opposition will survive on lives. You have said, Prince Johnson felt within himself that he was joining for Lima County, that we couldn't be great. But President Weah had breakaway. If you go against President Weah, you go against the people of Liberia. So thank
you there. Let's take this other person. Go ahead. What's your name? Quickly.
Yes, thank you so much. My name is George S. Stengber. I'm a Liberian. I live in Berlin, and I'm here reading economics.
Okay,
Mr.
George.
TWEAH, yes, thank you. Yeah, Mr. TWEAH, I listened to your question very clearly. I mean, your deliberation and exposé. I'm just concerned on what are the kind of policies now that you are using for improving our GDP, because your explanation is clearly telling me that there are some level of growth, the model theory that you are using, but in actuality, we don't see these things because there are no subsidies going to private local companies that are in the industrial sector. So how can we, improve that side? And what are your plans if the government is actually re-elected? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We leave you right there. Let's take this other person. What's your name?
Good evening.
Good evening. Let's hear you quickly. No time.
Thank you. My two questions to the minister Question number one, you said the budget of the CDC is a full budget. In 2017, the budget of 2023 by term of budget actually made one. So, basically, to the national budget, President Georgia's budget is 4.5 billion. What makes it different or make it so good than any Justice national budget? Question number two, he said that the economic policy of the Unity Party will never go. And himself as the economic consultant, therefore, there are other people the West when you Sunday. Are you discrediting their record of their legacy at that time?
Okay, thank you very much. We'll leave you. We'll take this other person. Go ahead. Let's hear you. 1 minute.
Okay, hello to everyone. It's still Mr. Minister. I call from Maryland County, Tubman University campus to be precise.
You didn't call your name though.
Sorry, my name is Thaddeus Kumar. I call from Tubman University campus.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to have the minister to talk over something. I just want to mention that there have been discussions with folks around that this Liberian thing that the government will come back to power, giving a second chance, which is somehow could be something good or bad. There's this thing that people believe that, Mr. Minister, if the government is giving a second chance and then it comes to the Liberian thing that this is our last time, and we're not going to have another chance. This is just your last time being president for 6 years. So let's do what we can do. Let's get our best out of the year. And we believe there's going to be a lot of ways, even that you won't be able to pay people on time, you won't be able to salary flows, teachers at university will not get their pay coming in maybe 2-3 months, and this will cause this organization of campuses. There are a lot of the discussions around, and I think it's important that the minister talk about this thing. In fact, if you come to Maryland in the capping time, Mr. Minister, if I'm here, I think we have a town meeting on some of the economic relief programs.
Okay.
Because you have to be looking at during the time when the peace become a disadvantaged part of the country, certain part of the year, certain time of the year will become a
Thank you very much. You made your points. I'll leave you and take this other person quickly. Go ahead. 1 minute.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Minister.
Good evening. Let's hear you quickly. Let's hear you.
Yeah, my name is Yusuf Freeman. I come from Center Morovia.
Go ahead, Yusuf.
I want to get the minister very thankful for his work, his presidency. But I'm a physician. I want to know, because when we go out there, we're going to carry our party good work.
Yeah, just go ahead with the question. What you want to know?
I want to know what kind of work do you put into place for this? How prices are on the market right now? I really want to know.
Okay, thank you very much. He will respond to it. Let's take this other person. Go ahead. 1 minute. Let's hear you.
Yeah, good afternoon, every Gossip and good afternoon to the Honorable Minister and CEO.
Go ahead.
We're glad to be on another this evening. I appreciate the presentation this evening. And I like the way you presented the issue of the Unity Party is not of a real force when it comes to recommendation on a debate. We need to see get to do having to test it. However, for the record, I'm thank you for the presentation, but we are coming for you for the
Right there. Let's take this other person. Go ahead quickly.
for the record, hello, okay.
Hello, let's hear you. What's your name? Where you join us from?
Yeah, my name is Lucine, calling from the USA. Lucine Barney.
Lucine.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for sure. And I want to say good afternoon to the Honorable Minister, Mr. TWEAH. Yeah, my question has to do with to Mr. TWEAH. Mr. TWEAH, this year budget that was just passed by the government, and you actually gave the Liberian people the specific number when it comes to youth empowerment within that budget. Thank you.
Let's take this other person. Oh my God!
You actually gave the Liberian people the specific number when it comes to youth empowerment
at the moment. Let's take this one. Go ahead. Let's hear you. 1 minute.
Hello.
You go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Victor P. Tabo, coming in Sergeant Plea. I'm calling from Battery Factory to be precise, African. Yeah, I've been listening to the Nambi minister. I really enjoy his work. Well, Mr. Minister, what are you guys doing about this woman to come in ministry who always in the habit of creating artificial red shortage? And whenever you give subsidy to the rest, she's in the constant habit of cutting the money up. What you have to do with such a woman in this government? Yeah. Yeah, thank you. My name is President New the party, my interparty affairs, and let me say a certain good evening, and let me appreciate the Prime Minister and CEO. He spoke natively, and I think what he said is a clear manifestation that all Liberians should support this regime, because the pocket map of this regime is unbending. In fact, no all regime can be supported this regime.
Yeah, I want to tell the minister thank you. But I really my concern here is they rate are going up in the country that what they post use again 2020. I can remember the election time. So let it try to talk about the rate. The money people have problem in the country. When they count down on any prayer we're going to do, so they don't want to do what they so let it come with policy. Let it force that policy. It's very give you a hard time. They see that too, especially go to somebody but they don't even want this to you. So they try to in election coming, let two but they rate in the country.
Great business in the country. Let's leave you and take this other person. Austin, we have to think about how many calls we can take. 1 minute. Go ahead. Let's hear you.
Yeah, how is that? I'm Justice Lee Baker calling from Royal County, People City to be precise. Listening to the Finance Minister for the hope. And what I want to tell the opposition is that their government is the best government. Because since we are born to hear that university is free tuition, and one see because for me I told wire in 2013. In 2013 I paid money, but they come around my brother and sister and are taking a while, they don't pay rack. So then why would we not vote the government for the second thing? The government going because since the government took power, we haven't eaten for what we have, they arrest.
Okay, we leave you right there. Thank you very much. Let's take this other person. Hello, go ahead. Hello?
Yes, hello, good afternoon to you.
Go ahead, let's hear you.
Yeah, this is Abubakar and from the first of Kalasco, you support President John Williams in the election. Today, I want to say a big thank you to the Honorable Minister for what he's currently doing for the country. But here it is again. President John Williams is trying all his possible best to make this country a great nation. And that is the reason why he's highly committed to boosting our economic sector as well as the educational sector and other health sector. If you can recall, the president just took more than 2,000 health workers in order that we can have an accessible and affordable healthcare facility for the Liberians.
Thank you. He did that for the health sector. Let's take this other person. We'll take 5 more, then we call it a day. Go ahead. 1 minute. What's your name?
Yes, hello.
Hello. What's your name? Where you join us from?
This is Melvin Boba calling from Istanbul, Turkey.
Go ahead, from Istanbul, Turkey.
Yeah, I just want to make a recommendation to the Honorable Minister. Minister TWEAH, the US dollar is a local currency, along with our local currency in the country. I want to recommend that you go back to the Tottenham system and bring in the coins, the US dollar coin, and give a 150 rate. That money you will put in the market, that US dollar coins will then leave the country. It will help to stabilize our US rate because it will not go outside. The people are taking the US dollar, the paper money, and carrying it outside. So when government bring in the coins, the 50 cent and the $1, 25 cents, and put it on the market at a rate of 150 Liberian dollars stable, it will never leave the country. It will help our own money to be stronger. I hope you take note and do something about it.
Very much. Believe you will take that other person. Hello, go ahead. 1 minute. Okay, we missed out on that person. Let's take the last four, then we call it a day. We'll take the last four. We take our break quickly. We come back. We join the minister. Go ahead. Let's hear you. 1 minute.
How you doing, sir?
We're great. What's your name? Where you join us from?
I'm Johnstown. I'm calling from Jogatown.
Jogatown. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I just want to tell the minister that thank you for picking my call. But I want to tell him that the harmonization, what he said is not anything. And 90% of the finance work of the finance employee, they are against our credit. If people that are right, they don't want to tell you they are against it, they will not vote president. We are saying it every day and then in our ministry. Our expenses here in our place there. But I mean people to you, your offenses now, your critics and your illustrious flow, they are not doing you well. They are putting opposition. They are opposition instead of sedition. Thank you very much.
Employing opposition instead of seditions. Let's take this other person. Hello, 1 minute.
Yes, hello.
What's your name? Where you join us from?
This is Michael Gilman from Detroit, Michigan.
Go ahead, Mr. Gilman.
And I'd like to commend the minister for deliberating so well tonight. My question is, Mr. Minister, could you tell us, please, are there any civil servants in government that is making less than $100? And how much does government owe any arrears in terms of salaries to civil servants? Thank you.
Let's take the low beginning with you. You're the second to the last. 1 minute.
Hello, how are you?
We're great. What's your name? Where do you join us from?
Yeah, I'm calling from Mombasa, Kenya.
Mombasa, Kenya. What's your name?
Yeah, my name is Ken Shaku. I'm calling from Mombasa, Kenya.
Go ahead.
Well, I just want to tell the minister thank you for a fun deliberation. We are actually seeing what the government is doing. They are doing well. But my question here is the MTA contributing to the national budget? If so, what are they doing to make that really vibrant?
Thank you very much. The NTA is the NTA contributing to the budget. We leave you right there. We take the last person. What is the name? Where do you join us from?
I'm Nathaniel calling from Bonap.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my attention there is on to the rate.
Go ahead, show up, man.
I think the minister that at least the rate they should be fast and work on it. We're going to raise a harmony like that.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we go to the minister for his parting comments. We will take words from our official sponsors, Crime Stopper Liberia. Let's take a break to be right back.
People bringing safety to your door. Crime Stopper, stopping crime and making peace for them before. Crime Stopper Liberia, from the center to interior. Crime Stopper, keeping us safe, let's stopping crime for all of us. Crime Stopper, the people bringing safety to your door. Crime Stopper, stopping crime and making peace for them before. Crime Stopper Liberia, from the center to interior. Crime Stopper, keeping us safe, let's stopping crime for all of us.
Crime Stopper Liberia is here for you. Remember, you see it, you report it. This is a message from your own self, Omen Sam Sion. Crime Stopper Liberia is here for you. Remember, you see it, you report it. This is a message from your own self, Omen Sam Sion. Message from your own self, Omen Sam Sion. Message from your own self, Omen Sam Sion. Message from your own self, Omen Sam Sion.
Okay, so welcome back. We got all of the calls. Mr. Minister, you have the people of Liberia to respond to, especially those with concerns.
Thank you. Let me before I respond. Let me say I think that I find the callers very knowledgeable. I mean, the callers that call on your show, it seems they're very knowledgeable. I've been on shows, but the feedback I get from people here, it seems like they're knowledgeable. So let me appreciate all of the calls, all of the comments. Um, the first caller, tried to support my argument about how can you predict. He went and talked about the SDGs. SDGs are the goals set by the United Nations to, end poverty, improve in the private sector, all these different things, gender. There are many, many goals. But to his point was that before we got to SDGs, we had the Millennium Development Goals. So the Millennium Development Goal did not succeed. Between 2000, many countries didn't meet the Millennium Development Goals. Then we had to go back and rethink and organize the Sustainable Development Goals. So what he's basically saying is that, look, the PAPD sets an ambition. It was derailed, affected by macro and COVID, but it's still stabilized and performed. So I think he was providing that kind of context that you can make prediction, but curveballs can be thrown at you. And those are the tough times. But despite the difficulties, we weather the storm and deliver in 5 years what I think a lot of many people are looking at and saying, well, this is impossible. What the president has done here with the level of resources, the difficulties, you guys have done well. So we're standing on that record. The president is running on that record for his re-election. Somebody else said that the president will be re-elected because of his decentralization. It's true. The president has decentralized development, has affected all countries, all counties, irrespective of, it's not based on tribe, it's not based on where he's coming from. So that's the point that he was making. Look, the president, if you work with the president, I see no president who sits on his phone and interact with Liberians throughout the country. The man spends time interacting with ordinary Liberians. They have his phone number. Somebody from Lofa texted the president about something happening. Somebody from Maryland, somebody from Nimba, somebody from District 17, Montserrado County. All day, thousands and thousands of people are interacting with the president. The president is responding to these ordinary Liberians. Who president does that? Not President Duckman, not President Talbot, not President Doe, right? Technically, the George Weah has, so to his point, George Weah has made the presidency like it's in everybody's bedroom because ordinary people can call the president and report development or can complain to him. He takes the call, he invites them to Jamaica, he's interacting. That kind of president, you can say you're stopped from going in a second term. It's not possible. We see that. The other cause was concerned whether harmonization was it's intended to affect, I think, a disregard degree. No, harmonization was not affecting degree holder. What harmonization is against is that they want to put a system in place. If you get BSc, you got to get BSc salary. If you get AA, you got to get AA salary and experience. They don't want that you get AA, then you make the salary of a master's degree. So, or the person who's a medical doctor who spent 10, 15 years in school is making less than the person who is a driver, who didn't have that kind of. So it's just putting everybody in their place. It's fairness. So it's not so much, it's not about salary cut, it's about bringing fairness to the country. Let everybody get their just pay. Fair, honest, according to the Constitution. So you might not pay people based on your relationship to them. You just look at somebody and say, I'll pay you because you're my girlfriend, brother. But the other man who went to school, you say, my man, I know you, so you made that other side. That's how the country will leg. These are the things that led us to war. President Weah is stopping all of that. All right. Then what kind of policies to support GDP? I said it's an important question, and I'll use this question to, GDP growth is just an indicator. It's a way to say how the economy is doing. What we want to show is that the economy continues to improve, but we do have a lot of problem with poverty. We have to solve what we call the business. Look, I want to use this question to talk about investment. After the war, there were a lot of investments that came into Liberia. Any president that was succeeding, I think, Judy Bryant, was going to attract those investments because these are natural resources. So Liberia was at a very low base. So everybody wanted to come do the oil palm, the iron ore, the gold, B Mountain. Everybody got to come. You didn't have to do anything special. When natural resources in the ground, even in the post-fighting war, the people would go there to dig it up. You didn't need any kind of major policy for natural resource for the people to come. Now, when they come, you need all the policies to make sure that the money that they're getting, now we have the EITI system, the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, to make sure that the money that's coming from those natural resources are helping to do roads and they're transparent and they're working for the people. But the resource exploiter will go there. He doesn't need anything to come there. He wants to take the iron ore and carry it. So all of those investments, when you look at Liberia level, after the war, we are higher than Ghana. Then in 2010, we're higher than Sierra Leone, we're higher than all these countries because we came from war. But after war, after all the investments were made, then we came down to everybody else. And that is where you have to do the work now, because you can't be saying you're going to have 5 other Asalamitars coming here. The iron ore mine is going to, there's not too many. Say you open Wodogisi. No. What we need in this country, and we're trying to push for, is a private sector that is open, that you resolve all the constraints to the private sector, road and electricity. I talk about electricity, how SETI can do 3 more factories if he were not paying the kind of cost that he's paying $2.8 million. It means he can't hire the number of people, he can't increase the salary because of that. So we're working with the World Bank, everybody else, to reform our private sector to support growth. We relax infrastructure, we look at banks, we solve. Banks say, Mr. Minister, if you want to give Liberians and more businesses money, you have to look at issues like collateral. When somebody gave me the collateral and didn't pay me, I won't go for A. But when I go for A, sometimes I can't get it. So it made me scared to get the next man. That problem there for credit. Every time a bank gives a loan, that's a job that at least one job will be created. Liberia is way below Africa. We are around 14%. Africa, sub-Saharan Africa is around 43% in terms of the credit as a percent of GDP to the private sector. So it means we got a lot of work to do. So all these policies about Liberianization, it's about private sector, or business climate, ease of doing business, electricity, the time it takes to get electricity, the time it takes to enforce, all that work is what we're rolling up now in the World Bank program to say, to the Ministry of Commerce, to say, let's do this so that our GDP can be paper GDP. That paper GDP we hire the last 2 years, paper, on May, inside, all kind of free things. Now you move from there, the paper collapse. We want solid GDP. So the caller is right. What, we're putting plans under the new PAPD to ensure that we support growth. He said, the other question was, why do we believe that our budget is more pro-poor than the Ellen government budget? Of course, George Weah budget has to be pro-poor because George Weah took money from the budget to take care of the Liberian people. For example, another caller said 2,000 health workers. 2,000 health workers at $12 million. That money, VP Joseph Barker, they were not paying that money. The donors were paying that money. When we came, President took $12 million from the budget and brought 2,000 Liberians on the payroll. That budget is still supporting those 2,000 and their families. The proposal was to keep them out of the payroll so they can be unemployed. The president said, no, I will take them on. Our budget is pro-poor. That same budget is paying free tuition, college, $4 million, was $2 million. So let's say that's $6 million. 6 times 12, that's $72 million. That's it. 6 times 6, that's 36. So $36 million of that money under the second term, all happening to it. All happening to it. So that's 72 actually became like 12 million times 6. 72 million under the second term. That's 72 million. We didn't have it to build road. We put it to university students and to 204,000 high school students. They ate the 72 million that under Joseph Boakai was used to pay higher salary for elites and other people. So that is the reason why George Weah budget is always pro-poor. George Weah also say, I will not take 10 cents on excise for fuel. I'd rather leave it in the pocket of the Liberian people. So George Weah suffering his revenue because the Liberian people need to be stabilized. So, my brother, that is the reason why the Joshua budget is a pro-poor budget that is working for the ordinary Liberians. The other question was economic relief program for universities. Again, under Joshua, I just told you, university teachers at the University of Liberia, and there's not only University Liberia, community colleges are way, way better off than at any time in the country's history. Their compensation packages, their support structure is way elevated. All community colleges, University of Liberia, we told you we'll move university salary 40%. We are in the process of moving it to 60. So, I mean, you're making 2,000, you're going to be making 4,000. Go to Furabe, not there. But they say, but what? Yeah, all right, teacher, Furabe teacher, and supposed to we running and compete with our people in here. So we're doing well. We know there are challenges. Topper University have an infrastructure, have an engineering building that we're trying to refurbish and expand. The Topper University, there are a lot of things that we need to do. So when I come to Maryland, I will engage with the university students. So we see university spending. I will discuss with them. Send the university people, they are the people who you talk the GDP to, because at that place now will be in the academic domain. So we look at spending under George Weah and spending under Joseph Waka, who has done well for the universities, for the public colleges, whether student, whether teacher, who. So they will look at our and say, no, but we're seeing the thing. High prices, a lot of calls, I think after, a lot of calls talk about price and exchange rate, and I think these are a serious issue. One of the reasons why prices, and what are we doing to it, is that for prices to be stable, the exchange rate itself has to be stable. Because the big thing on price is the exchange rate. The fact that you're supposed to be paying $200 for something in US dollar. And when you go to pay that $200, but you say, I don't have $200, I only have Liberian dollars. And the man tell you, say, okay, no, but if you want to pay Liberian dollar, if the rate is 170, pay it at 170, 195, or pay at 180. What happened to the price right there? You are paying what? Higher price. The thing is $200 in US dollar. You're supposed to get it in Liberian dollar for the exchange rate at 170, right? The man said because you bring in Liberian dollar, you must pay 180, 185. So right there, the price is already high for you. So we're working to stabilize that so that you don't feel that. That's one reason there. The other reason why prices could be high in the economy is from the port. The cost of importing things at the port, Free Port of Monrovia. People take those costs and add it on the prices in the market. Let me tell you what President Weah has done. You know APM terminal? President Weah inherited APM terminal, right? That investor was supposed to bring something called gantry crane. You know the big cranes that can go in the ship, the machine that can take the car from the ship and put it on a jet cross and come on the other side and just put it on the ground. That investment, President Weah inherited it. They never provided it. When the new management of APM terminal came, they sat down, President Weah came to power. He said, look, let me tell you. That time Bill Trower was the port manager, the Minister of Justice, myself, and the Minister of Commerce, Professor Tape. President Guillaume Mendes said, look, all that your thing you're doing over there. The way I see port in Guinea, port in Ivory Coast, port in Ghana, I live in those countries. The people get gantry crane. APM terminal in Ghana get gantry crane. I know Ellen Johnson Sally and Joseph Waka didn't bring it yet, but me and John Weah, they will bring gantry crane. You'll go to them. Whether you go to Dubai, you go Mars, you go work with the company to bring gantry crane. We went and started looking at all APM terminal issues, all the noise. They agreed as a part of the president's mandate that they were going to make investment in gantry crane. I can announce to you that 2 gantry crane are on the way. They will come here in September of this year at the Free Port of Monrovia. President Weah will go to dedicate them. So he received a concession, inherited a concession that was not working for the Liberian people. He used his leadership, his popo background to press the concession there, to reorganize it, and to meet some of the things that they're supposed to do. Now, when that gantry crane comes, you know what I mean? You can clear the free port of Monrovia in hours. Now it takes days because the inefficiency, so that cost is going on the consumer. George, we are structurally has moved to enforce the concession contract with APM Terminal, and the pressure he applied is now making that investment to work. So we'll go dedicate along with all the other things there. When that one comes, it can have impact on prices. So the mayor is fixing the structural things. The thing that can also have impact on prices is to continue to do the real infrastructure development, to move the private sector. So at the end of the day, US dollar will come in the country, right? And then it is that stability that will keep prices low. All these things, they're not just one thing. Cost of electricity also. We are working on all these things. But in the meantime, while we're working on these things, we need the time. That's why we need our second term. The president needs a second term. We are taking measures to stabilize it. Even while we're doing the port reform, all the digitization at the free port of Monrovia, all that stuff. So you can lower the cost to the administrative cost of clearing goods. All right. So those are the things that we are working on to what they call. Another caller talk about, and somebody said creating artificial. There's no artificial shortage. Again, if anything, don't accuse the Minister of Commerce. If anything, it is George Weah that has made the price of rice cheap. I mean, kept it low when in Sierra Leone, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Ghana, the rice price that is going up according to the market forces. George Weah stopped the business people from receiving $144 million. Joseph Boakai and the Unity Party gave the business people $144 million. For 4 years, they did not have that money. If they had, like when people have paid a higher price, that's the money that will come and go to the business people. Again, somebody say how poo-poo is the budget, how bread and butter is the policy of the government, and the evidence there. So rice shortage, rice is not short. If anything, our program is making more rice available. The reason why we dropped that policy of keeping the rice was because of the COVID and the Ukraine war. You could not. Government was supposed to be paying subsidy to the tune of $60 million. The president said, the one thing I get a business people 5 million, 10 million to bring reso as a minister come by finance. But giving the business people 60, 70 million to keep the price, you'll go to market economics, you'll lead that policy. People ask, when you lead a policy, they like bring poor revenue, you can play with A, the poor will be in the street. President say, I'm the leader of the Liberian people. I will do what is right. We took that decision. So the president has now walked away from tough decision making. They make the decision, explaining to the Liberian people, they see the impact, they move on. That is leadership. You know, the party, they didn't do that. So they don't have a right to come compete for this second round here, for the leadership. Yeah, they have a right under the constitution, but the Liberian people will say, but man, you were there, you didn't do the thing, and the men there in 4 years time, you doing all the things, and you won't come back. So the rate needs to be, that's a very important question. She said, let us enforce the thing so that the rate, and this is the same thing. I can tell you that the government has come up with a policy. Now the question now here, the citizens, we all have to help the government to enforce the policy. When you go into a store, you need to ask the person, what is the exchange rate before you even start talking? Meaning, they're not coming from the mall. The exchange rate will be posted somewhere in the store. So you look there and see the daily exchange rate. The government now, the Ministry of Commerce, the LRA, the Central Bank, all of them, they got to go now and see, making sure that everybody is displaying their rate, because you don't want people making rate up in their brain. That's what's been happening in the country. You want rate on the board. So anybody going to a supermarket, they're telling look at the exchange rate. They do their calculation and move to the counter and they pay. They go to a hotel, they're not going to go to the counter and say, well, the exchange rate. No, they look right there, it's there. So that's why we came out and say, let us do that, because there's no other way to do it. That's a standard way. So we are going to enforce this policy, man. And you're right. You see, so I know you're not an economist, but you're a practical economist, because that's what you want. The enforcement. We talk about enforcing the Liberianization. That's the same thing. Liberian fronting for other foreign merchants, right? Now the same Liberian. The law say, but somebody go and say, man, just put it in my name. That fronting. Well, the money not in my name. So we gotta make sure that the money go in your name. If the Liberian people need the business, then the banking details and the financial transaction should be in the name of the person. Let's see what will happen to fronting when we go to that legislation. Now, if you pass that law, I can tell you, and you enforce it. Now, again, somebody will say, you pass that law, you're not enforce it. We need to pass that law. The central bank, commerce, everybody got to work to be looking at businesses and auditing and seeing who name get the financing and who name on the documentation. We coming on that one there. Yeah. The other, somebody said employing opposition. Okay. Somebody say people at my ministry are employing opposition. Look, let me tell you. One of the things of the president. President John Weah, he's not a typical politician. The typical politician come together and say, oh, I employ CDC, I employ this, all that one. No. John Weah came to the country, he said, nobody must lose their job. Some of the people who he kept in job did not vote for him. In 2017, he met the civil service, he did not downsize. Another person would have said, you know what, this civil service here is politically tilted against me.
Mm-hmm.
I will find a policy, I will move all the Unity Party people from the payroll. I mean, they will be protesting, but after 5 years, all that thing will die down. George Weah is a human being. He does not begin his policy from a partisan perspective. I know some of the partisans may not like to hear that. They like to see it, but that the man, you can't change him. He let his CDC people, but he's running the country also as a national entity. And so, objectively, he's blind and makes the policy that affects everybody. CDC inside, CPP inside, UP inside. So when you decentralize from Joshua and come down, you know, every Liberian will be given a chance.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not that there's no targeting of opposition in our government. We don't believe we should be doing that. So I don't think that's the direction. Any civil servant making less than 150, the policy the president announced at the State of the Nation address, there were people making less than $150 in this country. The policy is that as of the date of that announcement, the government was supposed to put in place a mechanism. We added 6 to 7 million in the budget to address that. In the mean, I can tell you, in the general civil service, no civil servant making below 150. That is gross. When they tax you, you can come below 150. So I'm aware that work has been accomplished, but there are still pockets. Again, you can never get 100%. Today, some nurses or emergency people from Ministry of Health just left my office, right? Looking at some of the situation they were not on, we're looking at fixing that. So the question is that in the mean, 95, 97%, but I can put my leg on a bowl for 2%. We're working on that 2%. But broadly, we have achieved that policy of minimum wage based on the decent work bill. Is National Transit Authority contributing to the budget? You know, National Transit Authority is the bus, that's the institution that's doing the buses, right?
Mm-hmm. The NTA.
Actually, the government is subsidizing them. So in some form, the Ministry of Finance is paying wages there for some workers. I don't think we do 100%, but I believe we do some share there. So the idea is that they will run the fleet effectively, efficiently, and be able to raise substantial revenue to cover some of their costs. I do know there are challenges there. I know people have been protesting. There was an unfortunate situation recently. I think there was a fire incident at the office.
The offices got burned
and all that stuff. We know but we're working with them to, as a state enterprise, to work to enhance effectiveness and whatever. But they don't contribute as a revenue entity. The money they raise stays with them there. They don't bring it to the government. Government take money from the budget and give it to them. So overall, I mean, these are questions that are good questions. They're all border on the kind of development that we're doing. I think what is clear here is that we're not pretending that we have solved Liberia's 171-year problem which we inherited in 2018. No, there is no pretense. The country has structural problems that will make our people poor if we don't solve it. We've not tackled those structural problems. We've been slow at the rate at which we have developed infrastructure. I told you the example of President Topman infrastructure that he left us. We just added 20 megawatt there. We are now in the process of expanding that to say we can't be on 88. Let's go to 250. Let's go to 300. Now, if you are 300 megawatts in power, then you're ready to talk about private sector. Then you're ready to talk about competing with Sierra Leone, Ghana, where the cost of power now like 10 cents. Your cost of power still 20 cents. An investor choosing between you and Sierra Leone or Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, will say, because of Liberia cost competitiveness, I will locate my manufacturing plant here. That's why now the whole manufacturing sector, all the things that we need to make. Somebody say, why you can't add rubber? I can't add value to rubber. When you put a rubber plant here to add value, you need power. You can be running fuel. The power stay high. So somebody will say, okay, you know what? I will put it in Ghana or put it in Cote d'Ivoire. Then I just move because Cote d'Ivoire costs cheap. Do you want that? Then a Cote d'Ivoire people will get a job. So structurally, we got to solve the power problem. Roads, we got to continue to invest in roads. We have all the financing available for the Southeast Road. We just need time. People in Grand Juda, people in Maryland, the roads are coming. All the roads will be paved. The money there. We've already agreed everything. President, look for the money. He found it. Joseph Barker won't come to be there to go take it and say, no. The Liberian people will give him the credit because he hustled for it. He did all the legwork. And he's not saying he re-elect me because I am a star or I am George Weah. He's saying, look at my record. Look at what I inherited at the facts. Look at where this country was. Why is it that now Liberia, things are stable relative to the other countries in the region? You give me a chance. I've done magic with small. You gave me $1 million, I stretch it to 5. You gave Unity Party $1 million, they turn it to 100,000. The difference between the two styles. One man can sweat the envelope, can stretch it. Community roads, road networks, all moving from domestic revenue. That is the president that you look at and say, yeah, we're not going to run this country here on the basis of style or somebody's perception that a president is not supposed to go to Invisible Park and play football. And so because the president built Invisible Park and he go there, typically Talbot and Tubman and we're not in that kind of thing. So they're not the kind of president that we want. No. The only objective test for a president is that do well by the people. Whether you sing song, you go practice in the morning, it's immaterial to the presidency. The presidency is affecting the lives of Liberians. Students who are struggling are no longer paying. The mayor has brought 27,000 Liberians to higher education. That's SKD phone. When you phone SKD, they said that 23,000. Joia has made public education open to 27,000 Liberians over the last 5 years. Under the previous government, the enrollment at the university was less by 8,000 because the cost was high. Why? So now today, children are becoming geographers. They're studying, medicine. They're enrolling in chemistry and math because they don't have to worry about the cost. My brother, who's the president, who's the vice president of the university, told me one thing. When you look at the people who are entering the university now, you look at the data, most of the people who are entering the university are coming from private schools. Yeah, and I told we have to address that. So all the private schools, they graduate, all the children running to the university, they're coming from the private schools. He's saying we're looking at something about the enrollment from public institutions. It looks like it's becoming a little bit challenging. I said we got to address it. So what happened is because of free tuition, students are now leaving private institutions and favoring the university, whereas it was the other way around. And so he said, look, Minister, we got to sit down together and look at the policy effects of free tuition. He said it's a wonderful, we know it's a success. Free tuition also places pressure on the university too, because when more people come, we got to continue to invest in all the community colleges, LUFA. We need to increase our spend there. So we're aware of that. Okay. But those are the works that we're going to be taking on in the president's second term. Having laid the foundation for growth, real, solid, sustainable growth. Mm-hmm. George Weah will be re-elected by the Liberian people because he has done well by the people, not because he is George Weah.
Liberia's Finance Minister, Samuel D. TWEAH. Thank you very much for joining the conversation today.
Thank you for having me. We enlarge the conversation. We take it to the level of the community. We've worked. The president has worked well, and the people need to know the story.
Okay, Jerome Roosevelt.
Nothing much.
Bana Evans, Winston Blading.
Thank you, Khan, for the great platform. Thank you.
Austin, we got to go home.
So we have to go. So we'd like to say thanks to all of you who've joined us on your respective platforms, to all of our media colleagues who came here to screen this program live. It's good to be here, and we shall return tomorrow by God's grace on our respective platform.
Okay, and so we want to say thanks to Crime Stoppers Liberia, especially the CEO, Mr. Sam Sion, for powering this edition of Freedom Hub. Let's take a leave to return on tomorrow. Bye bye.